Welcome to the Exotic Pet Collective. My name is Richard, and today we've got an exciting show. I always say that, but this time I really mean it. We got another YouTuber on from the reptile community. His channel has just been growing like crazy the past few years, and it's very exciting. But first, I want to thank the sponsor of today's podcast. They're definitely friends of the Exotic Pet Collective. They're also huge supporters of my YouTube channel, the Tarantula Collective, and just all around good people. And I'm talking about tarantulacribs.com. If you want an amazing enclosure to really show off your favorite species of tarantula, I highly suggest you check out tarantulacribs.com. They have high-end acrylic enclosures with magnetic locking doors that are all the rage in the community right now. But they're not just for tarantulas. You can keep true spiders, isopods, or pretty much any pet invert that you may have. They're very popular. They're selling out very quick. But if you go to their website and they have some enclosures in stock, use the code TCollective10 at checkout. It'll get you 10% off your entire order. I use their enclosures a lot. I'm a huge fan of them, and I highly recommend them. We did one collaboration together a while ago, so you're probably familiar with them. But I want to welcome to the podcast for the first time, Adam Wickens from Wickens Wicked Reptiles. Welcome to the show, Adam. How are you, buddy?
Hey, Richard. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Everything's all good over here. How's everything over there?
Yeah, we're hanging in there. Surviving COVID and lockdown, though we were just talking. It's apparently not as bad in the U.S. as you were having to deal with up there in Canada.
Yeah, everything's shut down. I can't even walk into a hardware store right now. Like grocery stores are the only thing, and pharmacies that are open. So, yeah, everything's shut down here still.
So who's cutting your hair?
See, I got this really great barber. Bald guy, pretty short, loves reptiles, cuts my hair every morning for free.
Nice. That is a good hookup. Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to the barber as soon as we're done recording this podcast for the first time in, I don't know, 14, 15 months. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I think our barbers have been closed. They're open for a little bit, but at least since Boxing Day. So the day after Christmas in Canada is Boxing Day. And yeah, they've been closed since then, at least. So everyone here has wild hair, including our premier, which is hilarious. He looks like a mob boss with it all slicked back. Yeah. It's hilarious.
That is pretty wild. Yeah, I don't even need a haircut because I do the similar thing. I just shave my head. But I really want to get my beard trimmed because I'm not very good at that. It's kind of hard sometimes. So it's nice having somebody that will do it, make it look nice. And
that's like the man version of like trying to cut your bangs as a woman, right? Like you think it's so easy, but like you always just mess it up.
Yeah. And I've had some tragic instances where you trim it and it doesn't look even. So you're like, okay, I got to shape it up, fix it. And then before you know it, you're just like, all right, screw it. I'm shaving the whole thing off and just starting from scratch.
Yeah, I would love to have like a big beard one day. If I ever hit puberty, like, I think that would probably be one of the things that comes with the added height is like a full beard. But until then, I'll just have this prepubescent type thing on my face. It's fine.
I mean, you really can't be on YouTube as a male without a shaved head and a beard, it seems. Like that's kind of
the key to
what
success.
You need nowadays.
Key to success, that's right. And also people would stop calling me the reptile Vsauce if I shaved it off completely, right? So got to have that going for me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about or not me, I know a lot about your channel, but tell the people that are listening that maybe have not come across your channel yet, like why did you start making YouTube videos? When did you start? Like how did this journey begin for you?
So I created my channel on January 14th, 2019. And the reason I did that is just because I have all these reptiles, I have camera, and a guy that I do comedy for. He's a comedy producer. I do a lot of shows with him. And he said to me, he's like, hey, man, like you're in between jobs right now. Like I just finished up at one job and I was starting a new one in like a week. So he's like, well, why don't, you're doing nothing and it's cold outside. You can't go anywhere. So why don't you start just making videos? And if it goes somewhere, great. If not, then you should. And I just jump into things with both feet. So I did. I created the YouTube channel and the Facebook and the Instagram and all that stuff. And I put out my first video the next day. And I put out 2 videos the next day. And I just kept going. So it was kind of like someone said, hey, you should do this. And I said, okay, why not? So if it was never for that conversation, I would never be sitting here.
Well, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. So you're a stand-up comedian. That's got to be a rough career choice right now in the height of COVID.
Yeah, there's nothing's been open for a long while, and Zoom shows just really do not hit the spot like a live audience heckling you. So it's a different thing.
Have you done? I've seen a lot of stand-up comics turn into TikTok that have actually, seems like they've gone viral and it's done some good things for their career. Have you gone down that route at all?
I would love to. It's just a time thing, right? Because Vine, when Vine was a thing, I was like 22 or 23, and I had a decent following on that. So I kind of thought about doing that, but I put so much time into this. I just really don't have time, unfortunately.
Oh, I gotcha. So that's so you've kind of transitioned, I guess, through COVID from being a stand-up comic to making videos. When did you get your first reptile? Like how did that begin?
I got my first reptile. Well, I guess I got my first amphibian when I was like a little kid. I had these African clawed frogs. I always forget about this. And then I got my first reptile from this girl I was working with. She had two bearded dragons. One was a male, one was a female. You know what happens when when a daddy and a mommy dragon love each other very much. So then they produce eggs. They need to be separated. And she knew I was looking for a leopard gecko. She said, "This is pretty close." And then I got my first bearded dragon, and then another one, and a leopard gecko, and it just kind of, you know how things go with tarantulas, right? Same sort of thing with reptiles.
I feel you. Yeah, I just realized I had my fan on. My air conditioner went out, like the central air went out. I guess it's almost been a week now, and there's going to be another week before they can fix it. So I don't have any air conditioning down here in the basement. The tarantulas and the reptiles love it. Me, not so much. So I had this fan blowing on me the entire time, and it was like, "We're recording a podcast. That's probably a
And
very
it's hot too.
distracting noise."
It's hot.
Yeah. So yeah, so you've got this YouTube channel, and congratulations, you just crossed 100,000 subscribers not too long ago. Have you
Thank you.
gotten your silver play button yet?
No, so you have to wait like 10 days before you can apply for it. So I finally redeemed it, I guess. So it'll be here in 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the country you live in. So I live in Canada. So it might die of old age before I get it, but I'm excited for it to show up. I'm excited for it to show up. But I did get that little check mark. So I have that little check mark that, I mean, does nothing for you, but it looks cool. It looks really cool.
Cool. Yeah. And have you tried to get verified on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that yet? Right. But still, I mean, you would think like I was having an issue, I guess about a month ago, of someone using my logo
Mhm.
and pretty much my name, just like misspelling it slightly or something, and
I
running
saw that.
scams. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell?
You
It
figure
happened
that
on TikTok as well.
yeah, you should be able to. I figure if you have a big enough following on one platform, they all kind of like work together. They always talk to each other, right? So in terms of like your audience, so you figure you'd be able to get it at a certain number. But yeah, they've been locking me out. Like I'm not big enough, I guess, to be verified on Instagram.
Maybe one day. And I also don't think they really kind of take our respective niches, whatever the word is. They don't take that very seriously compared to like people doing tech reviews or focusing on photography and stuff like that.
It's limited. There's never going to be, a reptile channel as big as a Peter McKinnon. Like it's just never going to happen. So I think that's part of it too is like, well, how big are these guys even going to get? And so, but yeah, it'd be cool. I mean, the blue check mark would look cool next to the gray one, I guess, but maybe one day.
One day.
Hmm.
So when you're talking about like the type of videos you make, you're focused mainly on reptiles and amphibians and things of that nature. Um, is there a lot of I guess rivalry would be the good word, or is it more of a community within like the reptile YouTube kind of space?
I don't think there's really rivalry at all that I can think of, but maybe I'm just not at that level yet where that happens. But everyone and actually the video that I'm doing that comes out on Thursday is about my opinion about reptile YouTubers, and they're almost all positive. I think the only like infighting, I guess, is like when you see legitimate animal abuse, and that's so rare. And most of the time, those are like these conglomerates, and you don't really know who's behind the channel because there's no face to it. It's just so I've never really experienced anything like that. I've had nothing but great experiences with other reptile YouTubers.
That's cool. Yeah, I saw that you had posted something. I guess it was on YouTube in your
Hmm.
community tab about
Poll,
at least
yeah.
having this as an idea for an upcoming video, and I thought that
Hmm.
was interesting.
Yeah, so
I
it's
actually just got a message today from someone wanting me to react to some TikTok videos, like make a video reacting to some of these TikTok videos of people mishandling or mistreating tarantulas, like pet tarantulas, and essentially like just bash them. I'm like, I don't really feel like that's something I want to do. That doesn't seem like a very a positive thing to make a video about,
yeah,
making fun of
negativity is
random
like
people.
You get a lot of clicks on these negative titles, and sometimes you have to kind of go a little bit negative. But I don't know. I just feel like that's not the brand, not like what you should be branding as like this negative reacts to and like just kind of stomps on people type thing, right? Like it's supposed to be an uplifting thing. You know, these are like animals, so let's all be positive.
I feel that. Like it's very tempting. Like you said, I know that it will get views and clicks, but it's also like that's short term. I think
Mhm.
that you might get a lot of views and clicks on that video, but long term, it's going to sour your brand because you're going to become known for that type of person. That's just like shitting on
And
everybody else.
Yeah, and you're not going to be respected by the community, right? Because that's the thing is like there's a that number, your subscriber count matters for sure. But also just because you have a big subscriber count doesn't mean that the other big names in your niche are going to want to work with you. And at the end of the day, you kind of want to be able to do collabs with people. And I'm sure that if I was the negative Nancy guy, you wouldn't have reached out to me to do a collab a few months ago, right? So you got to, be mindful of that too.
That was a lot of fun doing that collab with you. I'm still
That
getting
was fun.
comments from people. They're asking when we're going to do the next one. I was like, well,
Yeah,
he's coming on the podcast, but
I had some kid on my Discord. He's like, "Hey, I just talked to Richard. You guys are doing a podcast?" I'm like, "How did you even know that?" He's just like, "You guys are my favorite YouTubers." I'm like, "That's really cool. That's so cool." So, yeah, and I think he found me through that collaboration with you. So yeah, it's I love doing networking stuff like that. And that was a really fun one. And I get a lot of like, "So when are you guys doing the top 10 scorpions video?" It's like, yeah, well, we could probably figure something like that too.
so you've been doing a lot of like top 5, top 10 type style videos. Is that how you started your channel, or did it just kind of evolve into that through, just the algorithm and seeing how people were responding?
Yeah, that. I mean, it was never like that. It was, like I think it was September 2019 when I did my first one. And I think it was like top 5 hybrids, which was a good video because like hybrids, it's like some people are really for or against. It's kind of controversial, and I just kind of saw that every other channel in different niches, right? Like Watch Mojo, the entire thing is top tens, which is a Canadian channel I found out recently. I didn't know that. But so I figured, you know what? It's top 5. Everyone knows what they get when they look at the title. People are going to stick around. They know how long it's going to be. Once they're at like, hey, in number 3, you're almost done the video. It's good for retention. And the idea I had was obviously right and has been proven by other channels. And then it just kind of evolved. And those are the videos that do well on this channel. Not my favorite to make, but still a lot of fun, I guess, for people to watch. And I love the comments and, hey, you should have put this and you shouldn't have put that. And I discover new animals like that. So overall, I'm happy to have started it, but it wasn't the initial idea for the channel.
Yeah, it's a similar story with me. I guess it was about 2 years ago. I did top 10 mistakes keeping tarantulas, and just kind of like put it out there, and then went back to mainly I was focusing on like building enclosures and specific or species specific care, husbandry, stuff like that. And that video just like, I was getting like maybe 10, 20,000 views on my typical videos. That one jumped up to like 300,000 views. So I was like, well, maybe I should try another video like that. And then that one did a couple 100,000 views. I was like, so it just slowly over time, I very begrudgingly started doing more and more top 10 videos. And people are like, why? They'll leave comments like, we want to see more care and husbandry. And I'm like, I hear your words, but I can see the analytics and the actions.
I
It's
get
like
that all the
if
time.
a care and husbandry video is going to only get 5,000 views and the same, like it's actually a lot of times less effort to do a top 10 video, but it gets 10 times the views. It only makes sense to do that. Trying to break it up a little bit right now, but
Yeah, I would love to do more not top 5 stuff because I get the same thing. Well, the top 5s are getting kind of boring. It's like, okay, but I get 3 comments like that. And then, but if I do a not top 5 video, it doesn't do well. And I get a lot of comments like, well, you should talk about axolotls or amphibians more, which I would love to because I think they're awesome. But those videos die a slow and terrible death. Like nobody watches them. There's certain species that it's just you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're putting all this effort into, and then the video doesn't perform. And if the video doesn't perform, then you're at risk for the next one not doing as well because of the algorithm. And yeah, it's a different thing. You and I get it, and people who are on YouTube get it. And I understand that not everyone understands this, so you just kind of have to like take it and not try to overly explain it to people because unless you're part of it, it's hard to kind of get.
right. Especially when you're really counting on those views for your income now. Like there's an
Yeah.
added layer of urgency of like, yeah, I want to do stuff like for me, it's mantis videos and scorpion videos. Like I enjoy making those videos. I enjoy those species a lot, but they get a fraction of the views of anything else. Isopods is another one. I don't know, 30 hours making this 10-minute video on isopods, and it still hasn't got more than 10,000 views. I think it's hovering like around 7. And people are like, you should make more videos like this. And I'm like, well, nobody's watching. It kind of like takes away that desire to spend all that time and effort making a video no one's going to watch.
It is a battle between like what you enjoy doing, what you want to do, and then not that I don't enjoy doing the top fives. I do. I like making them, and they are to a certain extent, like you said, a little bit less time consuming. Unless you just, I spent 7 hours figuring out Adobe today, trying to figure out how to render this video, and it turned out it was a 4-second Vine clip. Like, so silly. But anyway, usually they take way less time to, deal with. But yeah, I like making them, but at the same time, I wish people would watch me talk about axolotls and frogs and stuff like that too, because those are pretty cool as well.
Yeah. So do you cover a lot of the controversial topics in the reptile community in your videos?
It depends. Like if it makes sense, because here's like the big secret, my secret sauce. I bait you in with something that makes you think that it's going to be a very negative video and very juicy and drama, and then I just turn it around and I flip it on you, and it's not drama related at all. So I didn't do the video about Kim Kardashian's bearded dragon. That's what everyone wanted me to do, but everyone else did it, and I didn't see a way to make it positive because it was animal abuse what they were doing. So if it's straight up animal abuse,
Kim Kardashian has a bearded dragon?
yeah, it's she probably had it for 5 minutes so that she could take pictures of it and then gave it to some kid or something. But it was like it had its nails painted, and you can tell it was like underfed and had metabolic bone disease, and it had like a coat on it. It was just, and they were holding it the way they were holding it. You could tell this dragon was like just not. A dragon would fight to be out of that position, and it wasn't. So there was something wrong with it, and I just didn't see a way to make it positive, so I just stayed away from that topic.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That sounds like I get that a lot with people putting tarantulas on their faces. You see a lot of models doing that, and a lot of times they're standing up, and the tarantula's like clinging on the side of their face, and it's like if it falls, that's a good 5-6 foot drop, and it's just gonna splat and it's gone, or get damaged really really badly. But you see that a lot on Instagram. A lot of people enjoy putting tarantulas on their face
Or in their mouths. But if you say anything about it, then you're a hater, right? You're a hater. It's like, well, it got 1 million views. So obviously it's like, well, I don't care. They got 1 million views. It's not good. Like, it's dangerous. Don't do that,
Not just dangerous to the tarantula in that case. Like you put a New World tarantula in your mouth, you're gonna get urticating hairs in your mouth, and that's got to be miserable. I couldn't even imagine what that would feel like.
Yeah, I don't know much about tarantulas, but I know enough that those hairs, just from watching your videos in your throat, would probably be a really bad day or week, probably.
Yeah, I actually have some in between these fingers. I was feeding it was an Acanthoscuria geniculata. It's the Brazilian white stripe. I don't remember what the hell its common name is. But it's a big tarantula with some nasty urticating hairs. And I dropped the crickets in, and for some reason it decided it really wanted to grab the tongs, even though they were pretty far away. I wasn't like tongue feeding it. I just was using the tongs to pick up the crickets and drop them in its enclosure. And it just lunged at the tongs and wrapped them up and was just holding on and just started kicking hairs. And I was like, kind of dropped everything because I was like, I don't want those hairs on me. But somehow some of them floated up, got right in between the webbing of the fingers. Oh, it's so irritating. So if that was in my mouth, Jesus, I would just end it. I'd be like, all right, this life is over.
I can only because I've had mosquito bites in between my fingers, and I know how annoying that is. I can only imagine having urticating hairs in between your fingers would be a heck of a lot worse.
Yeah, it's pretty miserable sometimes, and there's really no treatment for it. That's the worst part. It's like
I noticed with you tarantula guys, the Latin names or like the scientific names are like a really big thing. Like all of you really focus on that, and like every video includes them. Where in the reptile community, like I never even put those in the videos until recently. So why is that? Like, why do you think that is? That it's like such a important thing with tarantulas and inverts and not with reptiles?
I think it's partly because the tarantula hobby isn't nearly as well established and standardized, I guess, as the reptile seems to be. Like there's a lot of tarantulas that look extremely similar. Like if it wasn't for, DNA testing or really looking, at like counting hairs on the back of their legs and stuff like that, you would just assume they're the same species. So that the easiest way to kind of differentiate between species that look very similar, but also because I think maybe just there's so many species in the hobby that look similar. Not everybody uses the same common name. So one tarantula could have like 4 or 5 different common names depending on what part of the country or what part of the world you bought it from, and a lot of them are very similar. Like Mexican red leg, Mexican red knee, Mexican blood leg, Mexican flame knee, Mexican flame leg. It's like those are all completely different tarantulas, and they don't even look that similar, but the names are so similar, people get very confused. And then they do stuff like just say starburst baboon. It's like, well, that technically could be about 10 different tarantulas. Is it a toga starburst or an orange starburst or a pink starburst or so it gets very confusing. So the only way to tell the difference between the two is to just use the scientific name.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I never thought about that. I always wondered, but I never knew the answer.
Yeah, newcomers hate it. I think everybody is resistant to it at first because you're like, you don't know how to pronounce it. A lot of it's in Latin or, it's somebody's last name and then they change it a little bit so it sounds like Latin.
Mhm.
And like they did that with a trapdoor spider. Stephen Colbert really wanted a spider named after him or an animal named after him. And I can't remember the first part of the binomial name, the genus, but the species is Stephen Colberti. So they just put Stephen Colbert together, added an I, and now it's a scientific name.
Like the late night host. That guy.
That's correct. Yeah, that guy.
Okay. All right.
They also did it with Johnny Cash. There's an Fauna Pelma Johnny Cashy. So it's just Johnny Cash with an I, and we pretend it's Latin.
Interesting. I know there's a sea turtle named after Steve Irwin, but that makes a lot more sense than a late night comic.
Yeah, I think it was because David Bowie got a tarantula, or it was a huntsman spider. It's the Heteroscoda David Bowie. And that like made news because it was shortly after he died. Then they did it with Johnny Cash, and I think Stephen Colbert was covering it on. I think it's when he was still on the Colbert Report, and was saying like, these celebrities are getting it. I'm bigger than them. I should get it. Some scientist in California, I guess, was a fan and was like, yeah, I'll do that. I just discovered this species. I'll name it after you.
Yeah, interesting.
But I don't know if that's the same in the reptile community. But there are still like it seems every year there's 4 or 5, maybe more, 10 or 20 spiders that are just. They've always been there, but they're being discovered and described for the first time. Does that happen a lot in the reptile community, or
Not as much. I
yeah,
think the thing is too, like there's a much bigger difference between similar species a lot of the time with reptiles than there are with inverts. So like there's been a few, like they found a new chameleon species last year. I can't even think of what they called it, but yeah, very rare. I mean, of course, everyone knows about the crested gecko, where we thought they were extinct and then they were refound in 1994. But yeah, you don't really see like every day or every year, several dozen species being found. Not that I know of anyway. If I'm wrong,
yeah,
I'm sure I'll be corrected in the comment section. That's how YouTube works, but I don't think so.
yeah? I almost enjoy sometimes making mistakes in my videos just because I know that's really going to give a spike in the engagement. People love pointing out a mistake.
I started misspelling things on
Yeah,
a version of the thumbnail sometimes. It's so stupid, but it works. I'll
yeah,
just misspell a simple word and I'll have like so I can replace it after like the first day so I don't look stupid, but
yeah,
just so that I can get comments coming in like, hey, you misspelled this, and there's an extra comment that you wouldn't have commented otherwise.
yeah. That's a good idea. My biggest one, I guess, the way you properly pronounce the dirt you put in enclosures is substrate.
Mhm.
But for some reason, just I don't know if it's my accent or whatever, I always say substrate. Maybe I'm just lazy. I don't know what it is.
I've
It
never
doesn't
heard
seem like a
anyone
big
say it
difference
like
to me.
that.
I always just say substrate. And then I started to get so many comments. I was like, now I'm not even going to change it. It's like, I tried changing it. I was like intentionally was saying substrate. And then people were leaving comments like, why are you pronouncing it that way now? Like, we
I
like the
always
way you were
say
pronouncing it.
hygrometer. I always pronounce it hydrometer because I thought that's like when you read it, a G can make a J sound like hydrometer, right? So that's why. And I never realized that I thought people were like, oh, he's saying hydrometer. It sounds really close. I didn't realize I was totally mispronouncing it. So, and then now the next sponsorship I'm doing is with a company who sent me hygrometer. So I have to learn how to pronounce it correctly.
Yeah, you got
Otherwise,
to
it
hit
probably
that
wouldn't
one.
go that well.
And that's one of the benefits, or I guess it's a double-edged sword. It's a good and the bad part about using scientific names, especially when we're speaking Latin. There's depending on what part of the world you're on, you have a different understanding of how that word's pronounced. And so there's some words like poker peas. Sometimes I pronounce it poker peas, sometimes I pronounce it pokripes. I mean, it depends on where you kind of put the emphasis, I guess. And people get really up in arms. Like, it's not poker peas, it's pokripes. So then the next video I say pokripes, and people are like, it's not pokripes, it's poker peas. It's like,
Tomato, tomato.
yeah,
Actual
who
thing, yeah.
here actually is a Latin teacher? That's who I want to talk to.
Yeah, I took Latin in high school, and our Latin teacher was a very interesting dude who spoke like 8 languages. He was
Yeah,
anyone who speaks 8 languages has a different brain than normal people. He was a different
I would
dude.
say so.
Monsieur Renault, I remember him. He was awesome. He was a great teacher.
Yeah.
But the only thing I remember from Latin class is Puella es insula. The girl is an island. I don't know why that's what I remember, but that's what I remember.
Yeah. I also took a couple years of Latin in college or in high school. But I did it because I thought that would be the easiest foreign language to learn. I was like, looking back, I wish I had taken like Japanese or Spanish or something that would be useful. But it's like, even when I was in Latin, my Latin teacher it was all about writing. She's like, it's a dead language. We don't really know how to pronounce this. Like,
Mhm.
I'm going to teach you how I pronounce it, but that doesn't mean it's going to be correct.
There
So
was like a lot of
that was kind of
mythology and
frustrating.
stuff that we learned in Latin class, I think, and it was
Yeah.
like because you have to conjugate verbs, we have to decline nouns too. So it was a lot of that, and it's like it was a lot of writing, and we weren't really dictating anything. We just learned a lot more about like culture, and we watched the Odyssey and like stuff like that. But it helped
Yeah.
with French because in Canada you have to take French, and I took
Hmm.
French all throughout, like French immersion. I got kicked out in grade 10 because I was really bad at it, but it did help with French because it's, the Romance languages all stem from Latin. So it makes sense.
Yeah. It's very cool. Now, one thing that I don't like, I mean, well, I guess it's one of the main differences between the reptile and invert hobbies. Not just the fact that you guys typically use common names, we use scientific names. But there's a lot of people that keep reptiles start keeping tarantulas. They kind of like migrate into the invert hobby from the reptile hobby. Kind of seems to be like the gateway pet. Is you get a snake and then you start learning about scorpions and tarantulas and true spiders and kind of move into that arena. But they take the like aspects of the reptile hobby and try to apply it to the invert hobby, like needing to constantly change substrate every couple of weeks or every month, using heat pads and lighting, stuff that tarantulas really don't need. The biggest frustration though is people that want to crossbreed different tarantulas to make up new morphs of different. It's like these are completely different species, sometimes completely different genuses. You can't. It's not like it's not like snakes. Um, Especially ball pythons. It seems like there's a countless number of ball python morphs, and it's like that doesn't really happen in the tarantula hobby.
That is the
So
exciting part, I think, about ball pythons is that you can have the same species, but make it look totally. You can have a whole, all white or all black snake or one that's like combination. But yeah, I noticed that
yeah,
'cause when we were doing our collab a few months ago. I was doing some research on like morphs and stuff, and it really seems like there's really not that much or any at all that I could find.
yeah. I mean, there are some, but it's like within a species, and it's not really design. It's not like designer morphs. It isn't like intentionally tracking genetics. It's mainly like one species that has evolved in different areas, kind of sequestered from other members of the same species. So, maybe they have a little bit different coloration or something. But avicularia is the main one. They thought they were like 6 or 7 different species of avicularia, and they realized these are actually all just the same species, just different morphs. So you've got like morph 1 through 6 of avicularia. But I mean, that's just something that happened in nature. It's kind of like with dart frogs. I was talking to and the guy who does the amphibicast,
Mhm.
Dan, and he was telling me how like a lot of these dart frogs are the same species, but they're completely different colors because they evolved in a different area. Essentially, it's very locale dependent.
Yeah, there's a few things
I
like
do have
that
a
in the
question for
reptile
you.
community as well. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, someone left a comment. I wish I had saved the comment so I could shout them out. But they asked my opinion on since we're talking about ball pythons and morphs. They were asking about my opinion on, and I might be way off here, but spider pythons or something like that. What are they talking about?
So spider ball pythons
Yeah.
yeah. So if you have a reptile channel and you want a bunch of views on a video right away, put spider ball python right next to Brian Barczak's name in the title, and you'll get a bunch of hits. It is the most controversial thing. So basically, there's a neurological disorder with spider ball pythons that makes them wobble. And the thing is, even if your spider, because I have one, and he doesn't have a wobble at all, but that doesn't mean that if he breeds and the offspring turn out to be spiders, which half of them will, on average, those might have wobbles, even though he doesn't. And it's the same thing with jaguar carpet pythons, same sort of thing. So it's very controversial because you are intentionally breeding something that actually has a neurological disorder, and there's like a big
Hmm.
infight in the community. I'm one of those guys that doesn't have, you know, Kevin McCurley and Brian Barchuk are saying it's okay. Those guys have been doing it for longer than I've been alive. So who am I
Okay.
to argue? And then there's the guys like Go Herping who are like super against it. So I sit somewhere in the middle. I'm not a scientist. I don't breed spider ball pythons. I decided not to because it's just on the safe side. But who am I to say that you shouldn't be able to do that?
Now, as an invert keeper, just the name spider ball python sounds very attractive to me. I'm like, it
They look
sounds like a very
amazing.
cool thing to have. But
Mhm.
what make like why are they referred to as spiders?
They look like a spider web. So originally, when they're brought in,
Oh, okay.
they were called spider web ball pythons, and I forget who. I think it was Kevin McCurley. I could be wrong, but whoever brought them in, that's what they called them, and they look amazing. Like whatever you put them into, they look insane. And last year, I bred one of my females who I got with a spider. That's how I got them, and I decided
Mhm.
not to breed him. I bred her to a different male, but she retained sperm from the year before, so she put out a clutch, and half of them were combinations of spider. And the ones that had the three genes, fire, orange dream, and spider, looked unbelievably amazing. They are the coolest looking snake I've ever produced, but I'll
Yeah,
never get more because I will never produce more spiders. So it's kind of like it
gotcha.
sucks, but at the same time, it's like I just want to do what's best for the animal, not what's the best for my wallet in this case.
I understand. Now, when you say wobble, does that just mean like their head kinda like bounces up and down, or
Or
could you
side to
explain that?
side. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes they corkscrew, sometimes they'll bite themselves. Like it
Oh,
can be
geez.
it's like a spectrum, right? So it's like say an autism
Okay.
spectrum where some people are high functioning, you'd never know. Elon Musk, no one ever knew until he came out with it. And then there's certain people where they're not functioning. You'll know. So it's kind of like
Mhm.
the same thing. Maybe that's a bad example. I don't like mean to be offensive, but it is like a spectrum is what I'm trying to say here, right? Is so
Right.
sometimes it's like they can't even manage, to be alive, and other times there's no wobble whatsoever.
Is that similar to I just heard this term when I was doing some research for my ball python, but they were talking about stargazing. Is that does that have anything to do with anything that we're talking
Um,
about?
I've heard that term before, like but I've heard it in different ways. So I guess kind
Yeah.
of like that. I mean, if I had to describe what the wobble is it's you'll know it to see it. Like it's just very kind of weird. And like the corkscrewing is where it's really sad, where like you see they're like they
Mm,
don't know which way's up or which way's down. It's kind of like if you were in a helicopter in the clouds and you don't know, you have to look at your gauges to figure out where you are. Uh, they don't have gauges to look at, so they have no idea what's going on.
gotcha. I have a banana calico ball python.
Okay.
Is there any neurological issues that you know of with that species?
No, calicos are wicked. They have that cool like white on the sides, and bananas are like I'm trying to like turn it into my specialty and like get them into everything because I had a
Mhm.
banana and I produced a bunch and I kept them all back and it turned out to be a female maker because I got all females. Banana is really weird. It's I'm not gonna I'm not going to be the greatest at like explaining it, but there are male makers and female makers. So there are certain
Okay.
bananas that only produce males and certain that only produce females. And I think it's an allelic thing. Clint's Reptiles did a great video on it. I'm too dumb to explain it properly, but it's very unique, but there is no neurological issue with either of those. And you could breed that to whatever the heck you want. As long as
Yeah.
it's not a spider, no one's going to come down on you on YouTube.
So you're just what you're saying is that my banana calico is just dumb. He's just an idiot.
Oh, does he
He's
do that? Does he like do the wobbly thing?
he doesn't do the wobble. He just doesn't seem very bright. And a lot of times when he'll strike, he misses. And he gets confused by reflections in the glass. Like he'll think the mouse is actually the reflection, not what I'm dangling in front of him. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
ball pythons are not known for their intelligence. I mean, if you want an intelligent snake, there's lots out there, reticulated pythons, things like that. If you want, a 20-foot snake, but in terms
Yeah,
of
thanks.
ball pythons are not. There's no Mensa ball pythons. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy him. He's fun. It's the only snake that's bit me, and it wasn't intentional. Like he just, I it was my fault, really. I thought he was down in his like little burrow, hiding out under his little retreat thing, but he was actually up in like the top corner of the enclosure. Kind of, I had some like cork bark and different branches up there. He was just kind of chilling up there, so I brought in the mouse and pretty much just put it right by his mouth and continued to move it down towards his hide. And he got excited and struck, but by the time he struck where the mouse was, that is then where my hand was. So he just latched right on the side of my hand. It
Yeah,
was
that's what I try to explain to people too is like if you ever get a food bite, it's almost always your fault. Not always, but
mhm.
in that case, like that's a great example of, how that works. And that's why people make fun of me because I'll use a hook to like, take the tub out or to bring down the glass portion, and I'll use really long forceps. I just getting like getting a food bite kind of sucks. It's not fun.
Yeah. He was not happy either.
Yeah, no
And that's
doubt.
that's another thing, like, if it's almost like he gets embarrassed. I don't know, I'm probably anamorphosizing him, but if he strikes and he misses, he's just like, "Oh, that's it. Fuck this. I'm going back into my hide. I'm not even gonna eat today."
Yeah.
Like,
I've
"Come
got a
on,
few
buddy."
like that too. I got a Burmese python like that. She's like pretty small now. She's growing pretty good, but
Yeah.
yeah, she'll strike once, and if she misses, that's it. That's the party's over. Come back tomorrow. It doesn't matter. Bring me a different rat. Warm it up. Do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Silver platter. I want nothing to do with it. I'll
Yeah.
see you again tomorrow. That's it.
Yep. And then I got a California king and an Eastern king snake, and those are I really enjoy those. I didn't want to get them. They were my wife. She really wanted a king snake. That's just something she's into, and we found one at a reptile expo. Had all the enclosure and everything we needed, kind of pretty much just sitting around the house. So I was like, sure. And it was a I kind of felt like I was talking to my son, like a kid. I was like, you can get it, but you got to take care of it, knowing full and well I'm going to get stuck taking care of this snake.
So California. So what made her? I guess it was her choice. What made her choose California king snake? Like because there's a million that you could choose from. That's not even one of the. It's kind of common, but not super common. What made her
Yeah.
choose that?
Well, initially, I think it was just as a child she really liked that snake. So I guess she knew somebody that had one.
Mhm.
We couldn't find one initially at the expo. They were saying that for whatever reason, like king snakes were extremely common, and a snake that would have sold 5 years ago for like 50 or $60, they're now asking like $200 for. And then we just happened to come across some guy that had an Eastern king snake, and they had a male and a female, but the male had some like serious scale rot. I think that's what they call it.
Mm.
Is that it? Was that the right term?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
shouldn't be bringing animals like that to expos, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Uh, and we were just like, and he was trying to convince us that we'll just put some Neosporin on it and do this and he'll be fine in a few months. And I was like, that just sounds like a lot of work. I'm not trying to take on that. So we just got the female. She was fine. And then like the next expo we went to, somebody had a California king, and to me they look very similar. It's like the female is the Eastern, the male is the Cali, and I mean they're both just kind of black and white striped snakes. But
Yeah, if
yeah, I
anyone
don't know
ever
why
tells
she
you,
attached to him.
you just gotta put some Neosporin on it and call it it. Well, if it was that easy, then you would have done that before you came here, so you wouldn't have
Yeah.
a scale rot. But that's a pretty common thing actually, for snakes to be like, "Oh, it's $50," and then in 3 years hognose snakes. I bought my first hognose snake for, I think it was $100. You'll
Mhm.
never find a hognose snake for $100 now. And, Mexican black king snakes, that's the big they used to be called, the poor man's indigo snake, and to a certain
Yeah.
extent, they kind of are, but they used to be throwaway, like $20 at expos just to get rid of them. And then now I saw one on Kijiji, like that's our version of Craigslist in Canada. It was
Yeah.
$1,100 for a pair. So
Wow.
crazy
Yeah.
expensive now. And Dumerals boas is another thing. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you read the comments of one of my videos, but I'm a Dumerals boa shill. So apparently I make a certain percentage off of the increase in Dumerals boa's price, and it's because of me that it's going up. So anyway, the tinfoil hat is
Shill.
strong with that one.
Yeah. Yep. That's funny. I I've been called a lot of things, but not a shill yet. At least for a specific species.
This guy was all in. This was a long thread. It took it from YouTube, and I removed his comments, so he took it to a Facebook group,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's like, yeah, you don't even know what you're perpetuating. You're the reason that the price of these are going up. There, blah 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 blah. It's the same people that complain about housing prices going up too, like don't understand like the supply and demand
Yeah.
thing. So, but yeah, it
Yeah.
was
I
an
try to cover that
interesting.
a lot on my videos and podcasts. I don't know if it's just people don't understand what a free market is and how it works, but a lot of people seem to think that, there's like this conspiracy between all the tarantula breeders and dealers to have some species be extremely expensive just so they can, essentially just cash out, and they're just money hungry, greedy people. And it's like, no, that's not it. They probably paid a lot just to get it because there's not very many available. So if you want an extremely rare new species, you're going to pay top dollar for it. It's not
Any
a
commodity is
conspiracy.
like that. Not like
Yeah.
because it's like that with reptiles too, but or I live in one of the hottest housing markets in Canada, like right
Yeah.
down the road here. It's like the third most expensive place in North America to live, and it used to be kind of like the shithole of Toronto. They called it Hamilton.
Yeah.
So it just kind of it changes and people just don't understand like free market and how it works. But I think that's very like a very small percentage. Most people get it. It just kind of amuses me when I see like these. They're so convinced, and it's like, man, I'm a nobody. I'm a guy with a camera. Like you think I'm changing the market of this specific type of snake that's been around
Yeah.
forever? Like, come on, I'm way too stupid to even figure that out.
I've been trying for like a year to get a tarantula dealer to just to set up an affiliate link. Like, especially when I was making the species specific videos. Like, I know that because I see all the comments, people are like, oh, I'm gonna go to this business and buy this. And I'm like,
Mhm.
hey, just give me like 5% of the sales I throw, and I'll mention your business and leave a link.
Well, you just
Drive your
hooked up with one,
sales.
right? I watched one of your videos recently. You just hooked up with one in Mexico or something, right?
That's micro wilderness, yeah. But that's more of a like he will pay me to for like for an integrated ad in the video.
Oh, so it's like a
And
sponsor. Okay, got it, got it.
yeah, and then he has a code, but I think the code is more just to kind of track how many people actually saw the ad to depend on, so he can decide if he wants to run an ad next month. If
Oh,
nobody's
got it.
using the
Okay.
code, then he's going to be like, okay, that's ad revenue that, that's money on marketing that's not, getting utilized correctly, I guess. That was
You know,
something, they say that when it comes to marketing, half of the money that you spend um, is worthless. Like it's not doing anything, but you never know which half of that money is not really making a difference in your sales. So I think that's just kind of his attempt to track, who's getting sent from my videos or my channels to his business.
yeah, you
But it'd
sell
be
magazine
nice.
ads for a living. I can attest to that. Half your money is like no one's really seeing it. So
Yeah. But it'd be cool. I would like to have some kind of affiliate link. That
I've
would
never seen anything like that before. Because usually with guys on YouTube, they breed and then they sell and they use their channel to promote,
mhm.
right? Like especially with reptiles, you see that all the time. And I've never seen anyone with an affiliate link or like a sponsorship for another breeder or distributor. I've never seen that before. It's an interesting thing. I bet you that would work with reptiles too.
Yeah, I mean, you see it with like Epidemic Sounds or
Mhm.
Artlist.io, Storyblocks, Squarespace. I mean, even like the guys that do cameras, tech reviews and stuff like that. They always have an affiliate link where they're getting a cut of those percentage, of
Yeah,
subscriptions or sales of cameras and lenses. And it's like, I
I've
mean,
seen that, like ad
yeah,
integrations and stuff, but I've never seen like a breeder pay for someone to say, "Hey, like this person sells ball python," like whatever, right? I've
hmm
never seen anything like that. That's very interesting. But
yeah. There's actually one business I know of here in the U.S. It's CB Reptiles. They're based out of New Jersey, I think.
yeah,
It's all like, captive bred. Mainly, I think, if I'm remembering, it's mainly like geckos and ball pythons and maybe some chameleons. But they actually have an affiliate program. So you just kind of you go on their website and you give them, your. I think I just gave them my YouTube and Instagram and filled out some information, and then they approve you or decline. And they approved me, and I was really excited because you essentially get like 10% of any sales that go to their website using your link. The issue is I don't make any videos about reptiles, so it's
interesting.
kind of
Well, hey, that's
difficult.
something I'll write down and go look at for sure. But
Yeah, you should definitely check it out.
hmm,
I made $100 off of it. I guess somebody I didn't mention it or anything. I guess somebody was just in my description and saw the link and clicked on it and bought a couple of leopard geckos or something. So I got a little commission from that, which is appreciative. But yeah, if I was doing reptiles like you, I would definitely check that out. And they seem, I mean, all the reviews seem like they're a very good business.
it's very underrated just to like for creators, like just to throw a link down there, even if you don't talk about it in the video. You'd be kind of surprised. Like the
Yeah.
Amazon links, they've been pretty good, and I never talk about them at all. And in fact, because if you like try to if you put an Amazon link to a certain product, that company might reach out to you and say, "Hey, do you want an actual sponsorship?" So it's something very underrated. If there's any creators watching, like don't sleep on Amazon affiliate links or for other companies as well.
Yeah, yeah. And occasionally I'll like send out emails like, "Hey, I'm making the video on this. I'm going to be using your product. Would you like to, get involved?" I did that with ZoomEd, and they ended up sending me a huge box full of just different, like a whole bioactive waterfall kit and some fake plants and cork barks and stuff like that, which was very kind of them. Um, but I
I
haven't
try
got
to
to
get
the level
better.
where they're sponsoring their videos.
Yeah, I'm trying to get better at doing stuff like that. Like I just did my first like actual sponsorship ad integration for like a clothing company, which I realized after it's like I sell clothes and I'm advertising for this other clothes, like whatever. But they were great, and I
Yeah.
loved working with them. And then I've got two coming up next month. But to reach out to more companies and like be more proactive about it would be something that I should do more of for sure.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, so you're doing this full time, right? Like this is pretty much your main source of income.
Yeah, this is it. This is
Yeah.
this is what I do. I quit my job in November, and ever since. And there's no, comedy money. No one's paying me to go to their closed down club and, where there's no one allowed in. So this is
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, finding ways to I don't know, just kind of diversify income when you're a creator is seemingly difficult, especially in this niche, like what we're doing. It's not like it appeals to millions and millions of people from all different. It's they really got to be into reptiles or really into inverts to want to watch this stuff. But I
Yeah,
also
no,
think
but
on the other side, it's extremely beneficial for the businesses because I see these people that like tarantula dealers. They'll spend thousands of dollars a month, sending it to Google and Facebook to run ads. So they get ads in front of people scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, and it's like, you don't. Yeah, you're getting some like analytics, but those are annoying ads that people just fly through with their thumbs. They're just flipping right through that. But if you run an ad in a YouTube video, you know that like probably 90% of the people watching that video are potential customers. They're people that really want tarantulas or reptiles and they're going to spend money on it. So, kind of having that ad in there seems like a much more direct and better return on investment
and
than,
with the
just paying
integrations, it's
Google.
like I'm the personality of my channel. So if I'm reading
Hmm.
the ad, you're here because you like the personality, obviously. So you'll more likely listen to me than if it was an ad break and then it's someone else who you've never seen before reading the ad, right? Like a commercial. And you
Yeah.
see it with podcasts all the time. And that's why I think Bill Burr does so well. I listen to his podcast religiously, Monday Morning Podcast. And my favorite part of his podcast is the ads because he makes them funny. Sure, he
Yeah.
loses a lot, right? Like the Sherry's Berries thing was the funniest thing ever. But so he'll lose them, but the ones who
Yeah.
stick around, like MeUndies has a whole song now. The only reason I'm wearing MeUndies is because of that podcast and that stupid song. So I think that more creators will catch on to that, but that's what I'm trying to do with the ad integrations that I've got now, and hopefully other companies see it. And because man, I would love for creators like us to be able to make like legitimate money, like real money from advertisers because they
Hmm.
see our value. So, I don't know
Yeah.
how long it's going to take for that to happen, but it's kind of an exciting thing that might, materialize.
Yeah, and it probably sounds like I'm complaining, but there's actually been a lot of progress, at least in our kind of realm. Like Tarantula Cribs, they're sponsoring this podcast. They sponsor a lot, like pretty much all the podcasts and some videos, and but they get it. You know what I mean? Like all their marketing is online. They have a website. They don't have a storefront. They're not shipping globally yet. It's all just like U.S. based, and I think they're finally starting to get into some international shipping, but their business has grown just by running ads on my channel and Tarantula Cat and I think Aquarimax and a few other channels. Like they get and appreciate, the return on investment from advertising on YouTube and Instagram through creators.
And you'll
There's
see
a
that more. Like I worked in
Yeah.
advertising just as recently as a few years ago. And to see the transition, like the company I was working for, their bread and butter was this magazine for the Niagara Falls tourist district. And that magazine no longer exists. That was only 2 years ago that was their cash cow. And now it doesn't even
Yeah.
exist. And all they do is programmatic advertising and like geofencing and all this, newer stuff, and then even running ads on YouTube videos. So I think that is the transition. So now I think is like a really good time to be a creator because I think we're really going to start seeing that in podcasters. It's the same way being a podcast, right? So yeah,
Hmm.
it's an exciting time, and the world is changing, and especially with the way that you get advertisements because you're always going to get them. It's just a matter of how sneaky they can get them into you so you don't even realize that you're being advertised to.
Yeah. That's very true. Like a Micro Wilderness, I think they sponsored last week's video, based out of California, and he's a young guy, and he gets it. So I think it's an age thing. I think it's the people that are. I'm not saying that they're old, but you know, they they still think you gotta like have an ad in a newspaper or a magazine or on Facebook or that. they trust Google or Instagram to run their ad, not so much a creator. But I mean, I definitely agree. There's a shift that's going on. So hopefully that'll, and that kind of leads into the next topic I was wanting to talk about is it seems like a lot of the controversy that I get, and this kind of touches on something we were talking about a little bit ago. It's not so much that like the guy that was talking about those how you're a shill for that one species of snake.
Jim rules boas. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I get a lot of I don't know, flack, I guess is the only way to describe it, from people that they've been in this, at least the tarantula and invert hobby for, many years or decades. And they don't like people like me and some of these other YouTube creators or just, other content creators and on other venues because we're attracting more people to the hobby. They want to keep it small so the prices are low. You know what I mean? And there's not a lot of competition, and they resent the fact that you're trying to, like one of my goals is to try and build the hobby, get it out, in front of the eyes of a lot of, different people that may not have ever considered keeping a tarantula as a pet or even knew that people kept inverts as pets. So like trying to get my content in front of their eyes so that they can, just be exposed to this hobby really upsets them. Do you have that going on at all in the reptile community?
Yeah. So I've created a term for them. I call them cage Karens.
Okay.
Basically, anyone who is negative for any reason that doesn't make any sense. And I think that what you're trying to explain here is, I'm old and I've been doing this forever, and I want nothing to change. If the world never changed, it'd be a better place. And I'm completely disagree with this. I'm on the same wavelength as you, where you should be able to get, in my case, reptiles, especially snakes, in the eyes of everybody. The reason that
Yeah.
I am not afraid of snakes, even though my parents were, my mom's terrified. She doesn't even go in my basement because she knows there's snakes down there, is because when I was a little kid, Mr. and Mrs. Corvino came in and did a reptile show, and I held a ball python when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I knew right from the get go. And if we, as educators and entertainers on this platform, can do more of that, then we're doing the world a service, in my opinion. So there's a lot of negativity amongst the breeders. And you know what else I think it is too? I think it's a lot of, I've been doing this. I'm 60 years old and I've been doing this for 40 years before you were born. And I might know more than you, but I don't have a platform and I'm jealous. It's not a
Yeah.
popular opinion. I don't care. I think it's a lot of jealousy because they might know more than me, but they don't have the means to get their knowledge out. And instead of saying, hey, dude, hey, young gun, I hear what you're saying and you have a platform. Can I maybe give you this advice or tell you this thing? Instead, they attack because, it's like a jealousy thing. So
Hmm.
I think that's what it is. But I totally agree with you that we need not do that, and we need to spread more awareness rather than trying to keep it like this small little circle.
Yeah. I actually had, and it's funny because I think some people that, criticize creators forget that we are actually people, maybe that we're on social media and we read their comments just because we don't, defend ourselves, below them, like, and when replies doesn't mean we don't read them. So like, I see what a lot of people say. And one of the biggest criticism that I've been getting, at least my channel has lately, is that it's gone Hollywood. Like I'm focused more on the editing and the video quality than I am the tarantula or so, or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's the point though. Like every
That's how you keep their
there's
attention.
yeah, there's dozens of channels out there that are just handheld cell phone footage,
Mhm.
just stream of thought, just kind of filming as they're doing whatever they're doing and talking about it. Like that's what I'm trying to do is create something that's very polished and edited nicely and looks professional because that's what I enjoy watching a lot. I mean, I enjoy the more basic raw channels as well, but
Mhm.
when I just go to YouTube to watch something, it's something like Peter McKinnon or something that where somebody put a lot of effort into editing and making something look really beautiful, even if it's something as dumb as making a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Like I appreciate that.
Perfect example. And I think that production value matters. And I get a lot of questions from, I'm sure you do too, from people, hey, I want to start a channel. What do you recommend? And I always recommend you have to get good at editing because people don't watch, okay, so here's my ball python and here's my kings. No one watches that anymore. I used to watch channels like that, but there are too many good channels. There's too much competition and no one's going to watch your point and shoot videos anymore. You have to get good at editing. You have to have good production value. And one of the things that has helped me more than anything else in YouTube is you telling me how to fix my audio. Just, I think I
Oh
asked
yeah.
more than anything else, but it was just like that one thing made a difference. And the next video, bro, did you get a new microphone? What do you, and it's just like this $40 preset that, hey, Richard, how did you do this? You told me, and then I fixed
Yeah.
a thing, and it really helped the channel. So I think the production value
That's
matters, and
awesome.
most people
It
don't really
does.
realize it.
Yeah, and that's because it's the hard part of it. Like it's easy to just film something and talk about it, and then just upload that file onto YouTube and be like, "Hey, I'm a YouTuber." But
Mhm.
when you actually take the time to do the boring stuff, like learning how to edit and do transitions and plan out a video, like man,
Mhm.
that's something that I just maybe the past 6 months have really started because I was just like, I'll just film a whole bunch of footage and then kind of write an outline or write a script and then try and mesh those two together. But now it's like I'm writing out the script or at least an outline of what I'm trying to say, and then I try to like almost like I'm doing a cartoon or like an actual like feature length film. I'm like making notes and kind of sketching out what shots I want, so it saves
Storyboard.
time on yeah, exactly, storyboarding. That's how unprofessional I am. I didn't even
Hey,
know
man, I
that
don't
was the
even do it.
term.
I just know the phrase because I took a drama class in high school. So it's not
Yeah.
like, yeah, I've tried like to really, like what you're doing now. Obviously, it shows in your videos. Your videos are unreal. I've tried to do that as well. I just found it like too tedious. And I know that you have to do tedious things in order to have, but at the same time, even though this is like my bread and butter and how I make a living, I still want it to be fun. And I find that
Yeah.
there's got to be a balance of, not scripted and kind of off the cuff. And being a comedian, I think that I understand that a lot better than maybe some other, people who are trying to get into this, or maybe it's
Mhm.
just that I have experience doing it. So if I take away that portion, it detracts from the videos where certain people need to write it completely, and there's other people who don't write anything at all and they have monster channels. So I think
Yeah.
it's like there's no right way to do it, and it's just kind of interesting that like that's the way you do it and your videos are amazing, and I tried to do it and it took away from my videos. So it just yeah,
Yeah.
everyone has like a different method, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I've got like 2 different style of videos that I do. One of them is just a kinda new one that I'm doing, more of a nature documentary kind of style, and those are completely scripted. Like, I write the script, and then I revise it, and then I revise it again, and I really try to get it, honed down to as I don't know, as professional sounding as possible. But then pretty much like the top 10 videos and stuff, that's just a script. Or not a script, an outline. It's like, this is what the video's about. These are the tarantulas. Here's a few facts about each one, and then I just kinda riff off that. But when it comes to editing and sound engineering, like that's some of the most time consuming and boring aspects of making YouTube, but it also it's got the best return on investment, like
Yeah,
finally
that's what
breaking down and
matters.
being like, I gotta, a video, it's 50% audio, 50% visual. So it's like, yeah, I gotta focus on the audio some if I really because that was what was missing. Like when I would rewatch my videos, I'm like, why was this video not as professional looking or is not as much of an entertaining experience as when I'm watching like Potato Jet or something, somebody like that.
Mhm.
Like what? And then I've realized like it's my audio. Like I got too much echo and just sounds crappy. So I really need to kind of work on that. And that I think that really like you were saying that can really kind of push you over into another level of being a creator, I guess.
Sometimes you don't even notice it. The only reason I noticed that my audio was lacking is because we did a video together. So I was taking stuff that you made and putting it in my timeline. And it's like,
Yeah.
why does this guy sound so much better? That I understand that you actually went through puberty and your voice changed. But besides that, it was like a night and day difference. So then when I figured out how to fix it, then all my videos went up in production. So it's a lot of like figuring it out. And sometimes you don't really notice it until someone points it out, or you
Mhm.
point it out to yourself because something changes and you do a collaboration or whatever else.
That's true, yeah. And I'm
It's
sure
like
you'll hit
details,
puberty
and there's a
sooner.
lot of stuff behind the scenes, and I think you're like alluding to that where everyone thinks like, okay, this is the production, but you don't realize that I just spent 3 hours tinkering with the beginning of this, which you only saw for 7 seconds, or in my case, the last 2 days, 7 hours trying to
Oh,
figure out
geez.
why I couldn't render a video, and it was like a stupid Vine clip. I
Yeah.
was making fun of Brian Cusco, and I was trying to put a Vine in there to like, and now it's like the joke is missing now because I
Yeah.
couldn't make the clip work. So it's just a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't really see. It's everything is like that though. Every
Yeah.
sports are like that, and racing or bodybuilding. That's what I did before comedy. Even it's a lot of like, yeah, everything that happens behind the
Ever
scenes is what makes it big, and people don't realize it.
Do you watch, Futurama? Did you get into that show at all?
Back in the day, yeah, back in the day,
Yeah.
but it's been a
It
long
reminds
time.
me of, there was a can't remember. There was what was it? There were for some reason Fry was writing a script for Single Lawyer Lady or whatever the name of that show was,
Hmm.
and they start filming it or like recording it or whatever, and he only had a couple of pages. And they're like, why did this is a 30-minute show? He's like, well, it took me 30 minutes to write. I figured it'd take me 30 minutes to read. And I think that's the mentality a lot of people have when they're watching YouTube. It's like, oh, it was only 10 minutes long. It probably only took them about 10 minutes to create it. And it's like, no,
Such a
it'd be like
perfect example.
10 or 20 hours. Like
Such
I
a
just
perfect example.
uploaded a 30-second intro to a video I'm working on. That's going to be a few more weeks before it's over. And I just shared it to like my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. And it's, it's literally 30 seconds, but I spent all day yesterday on that. It's like, they're frustrated. Like, we want to see more. And I'm like, that's a day's worth of work right there. Come on.
Or even like transitions, or if you do like a set like a graphics, like if you make your own
Yeah.
graphic rather than downloading a pack,
Mhm.
man, sometimes it takes like 3 hours for a 3 second little thing that it just adds a little bit more. But people
Mhm.
think, I just you threw it on the time, that was it, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a weird thing, but everything is like that. Like we're kind of, it sounds
Yeah.
like complaining, we're not, but everything is like that. Everyone thinks, oh, if you're a race car driver, you just slip in a seat and you turn the wheel, and it's like, well, I don't think that's I think that we would all be doing it if it was that easy.
Yeah. Or if, stand-up comedians, they just get up on stage and talk into a mic for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, that's what I get all the time. It's like, well, how hard can it be? The funniest one to me was I was a national level bodybuilder in the like 2014, 15, 16. And people, oh, well, you just, go and lift weights and then you just stand up there. It's like, yeah, no, that's it. That's all we do. Just go lift weights for an hour. And that's
Yeah.
why I look so much better than you, who does the exact same thing. It has nothing to do with your diet and learning how to pose properly and starving yourself and water retention and fixing your sodium and your potassium levels. Nothing to do with that. You
Yeah.
just go lift some heavy stuff and you step on stage at the end of the year. Yeah.
Yep. My wife insisted, this is probably like 3 years ago. Oh man, maybe longer than that. I think it was before we actually got married. Like we were just dating, but we were engaged and had the date set. And she's like, we need to get into the gym and get into better shape. I was like, all right. So she got me like what do they call that? Membership to the Y. But there was an employee there that did personal training. So she got me like a couple of months sessions with him. And he was a bodybuilder, still is a bodybuilder. And I mean, I'm talking like wears the Speedos and gets on stage and waxes his body and
Mhm.
covers it and all that oil stuff and is flexing. And he essentially was like, you're gonna do what I do. And that was insane. Like it wasn't so much the workouts, like that was hard. It was the diet that he wanted me to go on. I'm like, I can't do this anymore, man. This is driving me insane. Like the
Yeah, that's the
chicken,
thing
tuna,
too.
and
Like
rice and broccoli.
at the end of the day, if you want like a beach body or you want a national level bodybuilder body, you're doing the same thing at a different level. Even those Abercrombie and Fitch models that were like a big thing in the 2000s and they
Mhm.
look like, oh, well, I could do that. It's like, well, first of all, no, you can't because the diet's crazy and all of those guys are also on steroids. So I know that it looks attainable, but it's not. To get that shredded, you have to, it's just, so it's a different thing. But yeah, your personal trainer, been there, done that, getting into it. And it's like, yeah, so I just lift so anyway, you eat chicken 17 times a day and whatever your favorite food is, you're not going to see that for 4 months. And then we'll talk about you getting on the stage. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to look like you. Like that's too cut. Like
Yeah, it's just like you just want to look like
I just
a
want to be
beach. I want to take my
normal.
shirt off at the beach and feel cool with it. And it's like it's still a
Yeah.
lot of work to do that.
Well, I mean, I don't even do that. I got my skin is way too pale to go to the beach, man.
I feel
I'll
you,
take
man.
my
I
shirt
feel
off
you.
at the beach.
Yeah, it's like I'm a
I wear
blight.
long
I'm a
sleeves at
hazard
the
to people's
beach.
eyes if I take my shirt off in public. Yeah.
Yeah. I lived in Daytona Beach for 8 years and I rarely remember ever going to the beach when the sun was up. I'd always be there at sunrise and sunset and night. But during the day, for one, it was too crowded most of the time with all the tourists, but it was also just, I can't, I just burn so quick. It's no fun at all.
So what's it like living in Florida? Is it as crazy as the news makes it sound?
Probably, yeah. It was, unfortunately, I was one of the crazy people when I was living in Florida. So, yeah, yeah. And I hung out with a bunch of crazy people and did crazy things. But that's one of the reasons I moved out. Like, it's beautiful down there, but it's just party all the time. Like, everyone the only thing really to do is go to bars and clubs and beach parties. And finally, I was like, I got to grow up. I got to get out of this environment. So, yeah, but yeah, it was wild. It was a good time. I enjoyed it, other than the sun and the mosquitoes. But I
I'm
wouldn't
trying
want to live there now. because they're going crazy with restrictions on, especially reptiles. It just seems like a constant battle down there with reptiles.
Well, that was my decision, right? Because like Florida seems like a wicked place. Like I would love to, that's where Camp Canada is. He's got like the coolest outside sanctuary ever. But and I'm trying
Hmm.
to move to the U.S. Like, and when I say I'm trying, I'm moving to the U.S. I'm just
Yeah.
figuring out how and how much money I need to send it at this lawyer in order to do
Hmm.
it, right? These immigration lawyers. So, but when we were picking, we're like, okay, so where do you? And we picked, we're gonna move to Texas, but Florida seemed like a great option, but also if you're a reptile YouTuber, you can't have tagus, you can't have Burmese pythons, can't have articulated pythons. Like the list goes on, and they're going after more. So
Can't
whereas,
have red runner roaches, dubia roaches. Like there's a
yeah,
lot of feeders you can't have down there
yeah,
too.
yeah, in Canada we can't have dubia roaches, and it sucks. So which is stupid, by the way, because in Canada, like we're not gonna have a tropical species live here. It gets cold in Canada.
Right?
But yeah, in Texas, it's like, oh, how many lions do you have? Okay, yeah, no problem. Like they don't care. You can have whatever you want. So
Yeah.
that's part of like the reason is like the freedom in Texas is unbelievable. So that is a motivating factor for sure.
Yeah, there's a few states like that. I believe Wyoming and Montana are also pretty unregulated. And where I live, West Virginia, like
Mhm.
technically I could have a kangaroo in my backyard if I wanted. Like there's
Yeah, there's a few
no
places
law
like
against that.
that. Yeah, yeah.
In
The
fact, there's
U.S.
yeah,
is wild, man. It's a different animal. Where
yeah.
here in Canada, it's kind of like that. Like there, it's different pockets. Like here, I can have Burmese pythons, but if I go up the road, you can't. That type of thing. Like it's bylaws for
Hmm.
cities. But yeah, you guys have some wild stuff going on in that country. It's a lot more interesting than here. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I love West Virginia. It's a beautiful state. If you do move here, you move to the US, when you move to the US, we'll say that. You
Mhm.
definitely got to come and check it out. We actually there's the New River Gorge, which is like I mean, it's just a beautiful one of the oldest. I think it's the second oldest river in the world, maybe, or maybe it
Oh
was just
wow.
the U.S. something like that. But it's amazing, beautiful rock climbing, whitewater rafting, caves, canyons. It's an amazing spot. And just like a few months ago, maybe last month, maybe a few weeks ago, very recently, it finally got moved from a state park to a national park, which is very exciting. And it's the only national park you can hunt in. Like that was one of the things when they were making that transition. They're like, it's such a part of the Appalachian culture that we don't want to like because it's illegal to hunt on any other national park in the country, but they're going to allow it to go on here in West Virginia just because it's. I mean, there are literally people that live down that part of the state that's how they survive. Like they're not going to the grocery store to get meat; they're hunting it every summer. So
So what's so great about turning a state park into a national park? Like, what does that mean?
you get a lot more funding first off, a lot more protection from logging companies and like a big issue here in West Virginia, and I don't want to get anything too political. There's a whole quagmire, but it was a coal mining state for a long time, and coal mining has really kind of fallen to the wayside. So instead of like digging these huge coal mines deep into the ground, they started doing mountaintop removal, which I'm sure they probably have in Canada too, where they
Mhm.
essentially just rip the top off of a hill or a mountain, and it looks like a different planet. I mean, it's disturbing when you grow up your whole life hiking these hills, and then you haven't been there in 10 years, and you take a hike and all the trees are gone. It's just like it looks like the surface of Mars or something. It's like what the hell? So it's disturbing to see. And then it pollutes the water, and then there's fracking and a bunch of oil gas stuff going on. So with being a state park, from what I understand, depending on who's the governor and what party's controlling the government, they can lease that land to the companies to just do mountaintop removal mining or lumber, essentially make money for the state by doing business with these private businesses. But when it's a national park, that pretty much puts us. It's all protected. Like there's no leasing off parts of it. At least it's
Okay.
not as easy as it would be if it's a state park. But I think funding is the biggest part. Like they get a lot more money for
I imagine
tourism and
it's
stuff like that.
probably the same as provincial park versus a national park here. I just never knew the
Yeah.
difference here either. So, but we've
Yeah.
got some amazing national parks here. I think Jasper, Alberta, Jasper National Park is like the most beautiful place. I've been to Fiji, I've been to Australia, I've been to New Zealand. The most beautiful place on earth that I've ever seen is Jasper National Park. It's crazy.
Nice. Yeah. And then I've been to one of the goals my wife and I have in our marriage is to hit up every national park in the United States. And we've probably hit about half of them so far. But it's
How
like
many are there?
oh geez, I don't even remember.
Is it like one per state, or like there must be more than one in
Oh
lots of
yeah.
states?
There's some states that don't have any, some states that
Okay.
have multiple. But a lot of them are just like one park that's huge and like Yellowstone National Park. I mean that covers like two or three states, three or four states. I mean it's massive.
Yeah, the
The
super
Grand
volcano there too,
Canyon.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's where
So
they brought didn't they bring like wolves in to control a population or something like that? Or
mhm. Yeah.
I don't know, yeah, something like that, right? And there's like the biggest bison population in North America is there.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the parks we haven't made it to yet. And that was actually we were planning on going there last summer, but with COVID and all, it was like that's not going to happen.
COVID, what's that?
Yeah.
We don't
Never
have
heard
that
of
here.
that one, huh?
Yeah.
Missed that completely?
Mhm. Yeah, we don't have that here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there's a cool man, the US has so many cool things to see, and like national parks are like big things as well, but yeah, I can't wait for this whole thing to end so I can go like not only that, but it's cool to like collaborate and like meet people like do like that do this as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, once that border opens up, I'll tell you, I got my shot yesterday. I'm ready to go. As soon as they
Nice.
open that up, I'm ready to go. Yeah, I can't wait to get down to the US and see what there's to see.
Yeah, I get my second vaccine shot Friday. So,
Yeah, ours are
looking forward
4
to
months
that.
apart for some reason, so my next one's in
Huh,
September, so yeah.
gotcha.
Mhm.
Yeah, Texas, I've actually never been to Texas. Like, I've driven all over the country, and I always would go around Texas. I was like, "I don't even want anything to do with that state."
It's a big place.
It is. And then, I mean, my wife loves Austin. That's she loves going there, and I've never been, but she keeps saying she's gonna take me there, so maybe one day I will go. I had just read, and I was kind of like a hippie in my 20s, and we did a lot of, long road trips, and just heard so many horror stories of small towns in northern Texas pulling you over for no reason and shaking you down for your money and valuables, threatening to throw you in prison or, and then you give them the money and they'll let you go. I was like, "Yeah, I don't want any part of that."
Yeah,
So,
Austin is like, well, Rogan moved there, right? And then he
yeah.
brought 20 something comedians, and he 4 comedy clubs open there, and he's opening one himself, and he just
Mhm.
had the mayor on his podcast the other day, and man, it seems like a crazy place. It's too expensive for a regular person to live now because it's
Yeah.
the housing prices went crazy. But yeah, that's where everybody is moving. Like that's kind of the comedy hub of the US. It seems like as things open up, things are really
Yeah.
changing.
I love Arizona. Like, we went to Sedona for our honeymoon. We're gonna go back there this September. I got a friend, I don't know if you know them. It's Shapes in Nature and Bugs in Cyberspace. They were based out of, oh geez, I wanna say Washington. It may have been Oregon, but, Pacific Northwest, and they moved down to Arizona, and they bought this big piece of property, and they're calling it Sky Island Adventures, I believe. I hope I'm not, like,
That's cool.
saying stuff that hasn't actually been released yet.
You
Uh
heard it here first.
but it's a very cool idea. They bought this property and essentially, from what I understand, it's gonna be like a Airbnb kind of thing where you rent the room, or like I guess they have like a little guest house or something, and
Mhm.
then you stay there. But then they take you out like during the day and at night to go herping or looking for just different cool insects and arachnids and stuff. And because they're big bug guys, I was like,
That's
that would be
cool.
very cool.
Imagine Arizona, there's a lot that you could be seeing too, right? Like,
Yeah,
'cause
especially in
I've
the
seen
Sky
herping trips
Island.
there, and it seems like the biodiversity there is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, just follow them on Instagram. They're constantly going out right now and just posting videos of just different, just kind of exploring, finding these cool spiders and scorpions and all. I mean, they had collected a bunch of bugs that they're like water bugs, like different bugs that live in water and have like created a whole tank, kind of ecosystem with ones that they collected. And I was like, I didn't even realize there were bugs that lived underwater like that, like water scorpions and stuff. It was fascinating. So I'm excited to go out there and stay on their property and shoot some videos out there because I think that's gonna be very cool.
That is
Hopefully
the
one
cool
day.
thing about, like, this niche, right? And, like, in terms
Yeah,
of, reptiles and inverts is that you kind of, like, become friends with people, and you can do collaborations and kind of, like, bump your channels up together and work together, and that's something that you see in other niches as well, but, yeah, it's something that I am most excited to be a part of is, meeting people and doing videos together with people in the
yeah,
same niche because there's it's limited here, and also my channel's only been big enough to even get attention from other people since COVID. So even the
Yeah.
guys in Toronto, it's like, well, when it's safe. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That's something really cool, and I love watching those videos where like when Clint and Emily and Dave and Cusco and all these guys get together, and
Yeah.
it's cool to like see the personalities interact with each other.
Yeah. Aquarimax. I don't know if you know Russ from Aquarimax. He's done a few videos with Clint's Reptiles as well. He's
Oh yeah,
mainly
okay,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
isopod guy. Yeah. He's a
Mhm.
great dude. I think he's out in Utah. But he's kind of plugged in with those guys on the Sky Island Ranch. He does a lot of videos with Peter and
I think you'll
it's
start seeing more.
Shapes in Nature. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll start seeing more like the integration between the invert and aquarium and reptile guys. Like it's kind of seems like a triangle, right? And then there's like
Hmm.
the small pet people and stuff. And I think that's just like a different thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that you're going to start seeing more of that, kind of like doing collaborations with each other. Because at the end of the day, I never really think about it, but I've got colonies of isopods, which are inverts. And I
Yeah.
never talk about it. I never think about it like that because for me, they're not pets or something I've studied or anything like that. It's just these are the things that clean up the poop in my snake containers. Like that's
Yeah.
all I pay attention to. But I'm surprised that isopod videos don't do well for you because it seems like amongst reptile people, they get really, I don't know, the prices are going up and they're getting like super popular.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's an algorithm thing because Russ makes a lot of videos on isopods and they do well. It's just
Mhm.
for whatever reason YouTube doesn't, suggest my isopod videos or my mantis videos. But I think it's cool because I'm not an expert at anything really, but my specialty I guess is arachnids like tarantulas. I'm starting to get more into the scorpions and spiders and stuff. But that's kind of like my field of focus. But the same environment that those species live in, there's a lot of reptiles, a lot of snakes, a lot of amphibians, a lot of isopods, and so it's kind of whether it's a desert or a tropical region, it kind of seems like the people that are really into reptiles within that environment, there are also some very cool arachnids and all kind of part of that same ecosystem. So I
Yeah.
think even though we have different specialties, we're pretty much talking about the same environments.
Well, if you're going looking for stuff, like if you're going like herping, we call it right here, or like for reptiles, is you're going to see a ton of the stuff that you'd be looking for, tarantulas and scorpions. And every video that I seem to watch, especially Arizona and like drier climates, it's always, here's this snake and this pit viper and then a million scorpions. So it seems like you see a
Yeah.
lot of them. And it's always interesting because I guess if you're interested in one, you're going to think, like, who doesn't think a scorpion's cool? Like, it's the coolest thing ever. There's a million sports
Hmm.
teams named after scorpions. Like it's a very unique thing. Same with tarantulas; they're very impressive. So I think if you
And
like one,
not to mention one of my favorite 80s hair bands, but
oh yeah, 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 Sebastian Bach, right? Was that the
yeah,
guy? Yeah.
that's him. Yep.
Mhm.
I'm just kidding. I was never a huge Scorpions fan. But when I post pictures of scorpions on Instagram and I use that hashtag, I find that that's where I get lumped into a lot of
Mhm.
80s hair metal fans. They're like, what?
That's
But that's
good.
not
Hey,
the
yeah,
only thing our hobbies have in common, though. Recently, at least in the tarantula hobby, and I've seen it starting to happen in the isopod hobby a lot, is this there's just like an explosion of scam artists that are somebody will post something on Facebook, like they'll be in my Facebook group and they'll say, I love this tarantula. I would really like to get one. Does anyone know where I can find this species? And people will be leaving comments like maybe this business, maybe that business. They're really expensive. They're very rare. Good luck finding one. And then some random account will see that post and send that person a direct message and be like, hey, I've got an adult female. I'll sell it to you for $200. And they're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. But then the guy's like, I don't accept PayPal. You got to send it through like Facebook Pay or Cash App or something like that. Somewhere where they have no avenue to like kind of what do they call that? Essentially ask for a refund.
Mhm.
There's I can't remember what but they can't they don't have that. Like if you do PayPal friends and family, you don't have to pay that, 2% fee or whatever, but you can't ask for a refund if the transaction goes bad. Where if you do it as a business expense or whatever,
Mhm.
you pay the fee, but you got like 60 days to request a refund and they cover it. So it's like you see that happen a lot, and now it's starting to happen in the jumping spider community. I'm seeing it happen in the isopod community. Is that something that happens a lot in the reptile community as well? Do you have Facebook trolls that are scamming people?
I've seen like a little bit, but I don't really know too much. I know that Lord of Lion actually, he's another YouTuber in Canada who does like
Hmm.
mostly bearded dragons and stuff. And he did a whole video about catching a scammer. It was like a bearded dragon scam, and I can't remember the exact details of it. You see it a little bit, but not too much. Like when you brought it up to me a few days ago when we talked, I kind of like, oh yeah, that's a thing. Like it's not something I think about or really like see too much of, but I mean it's definitely a thing. I've seen it on my own videos where, oh, he's talking about doom. Where would I get one? And I reply, oh, I don't know. Sorry, I don't live in whatever country they're in. And you'll see someone swoop in. Oh, I've got them. You know, DM me or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
ugh, just be careful when you're doing that.
Are you into cryptocurrencies at all?
Yeah, very recent. I saw your post on Facebook about the newcomers, and I am one of them. And I
Yeah.
did get, well, not scammed, but I did buy Elon Musk. Whatever he tells me to do, I will do without question. He is way smarter than me, and Joe Rogan likes him also. So,
I feel you.
but in all seriousness, I did invest, a good chunk recently on the dip, but I did get screwed on Doge for sure. Doge,
Yeah.
I bought
Well,
low and I sold when I got to like 30 because I got scared, and then it went right up to 80, and I bought more, and I'm like, oh, Elon's gonna be on Saturday Night Live, it's gonna go, and then we both know how that worked out. So
yeah. Well, there's this I don't know, I'm sure it's as prevalent now as it used to be, but like I stopped watching cryptocurrency YouTube videos or mainly commenting on them, or commenting on crypto accounts on Twitter because it's like I mean it's like flies to shit. It's you leave a comment, then you're just inundated with scammers that are like, send me 1 Bitcoin and in 3 days I'll send you 3 Bitcoin in return. It's like that is obviously a scam, but people fall for it all the time. You know, or they'll make an account on Twitter that looks like whatever crypto YouTuber you're following or Elon Musk or something. And but they'll misspell the name. They'll switch 2 letters around or something and leave a comment like that. Mr. Beast, that was a lot of people got really upset with Mr. Beast because they feel like they scammed him for a bunch of crypto. And it's like, that wasn't his Twitter account. Like,
mhm.
you just sent that to an address, you're not getting it back. So it's that same type of scammer that's like milking people for crypto because that seems like such a great deal, that are also taking advantage of people in the exotic pet community these days, it seems.
And some people are, I don't even want to use the word naive. They're just very optimistic that people are being kind and generous people, and they do fall for it. And in fact, I got hired at a job like a few years back, and the
Yeah.
job was you had to go buy things, and we're going to put Bitcoin in your wallet, and then you buy it, and then you send us the cash. And it was like clearly a scam. But
Mm,
I mean, I know someone who started the job and they got scammed. So
yeah.
obviously, I knew because I'm kind of a cynical person, I guess, that this seems pretty sketchy, pretty too good to be true, and it turned out to be. But yeah, you see that on, it's sad. It's sad when you see that. And I worked in call centers. I know how it is. You're trying to scam people, old ladies or whoever will believe you. Does this dial up make my phone fast? Yes, ma'am, for sure. I know you don't have a computer, but you definitely need to buy my dial up internet for your
Yeah.
phone. Yeah. So there are people like that. It's
Yeah.
sad, but you do see it.
I worked for XM Radio back before Sirius and XM merged.
Hmm.
And one of our I mean, like they paid you very well. Like I love that job. I would go back and you could like listen to the radio all day. You got free XM radio. They were a great company to work for, but you could make a lot of money on commissions. So if somebody called to, upgrade the radio or change their subscription or something like that, my whole goal was to sell them a second radio. And it was one of those deals where it's like, I'll give you the radio for free, or like a $100 radio for $5. You just got to sign up, and I'll give you 3 months of service for free. And then if you don't need it, then you just cancel the service and send the radio back, or whatever it is. It's kind of like you essentially get a radio and 3 months of service for free, and I would get the commission off that. And the guy is just a single man with one car, and he's like, "Why would I need a second radio?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, but it's only $5," and like would really work to sell him something he doesn't need just so I could get the commission.
And that was like a
Uh,
call center type job, right?
it was, yep,
Yeah,
yeah,
my first real jobs were all call centers, and I worked for Verizon at first, and then Windstream was a company. They served West Virginia at the
hmm
time, and at the time it was if you sign up, we'll send you a free computer. In the paperwork, it says you have to pay for it after 3 months. And then my favorite one was for Texas and Arkansas. I think they ran a
yeah.
promotion where you got a free muffler or shotgun if you signed up for a year. I'm
Nice.
Canadian. That was the craziest thing I've ever heard, but I sold a lot of Windstream during that time.
Yeah, I bet. That's pretty wild. The worst place I worked, I can't remember the name of the company, but it was my first job. I think I was either still in high school or had just graduated before I went to college. I think I was still in high school. It was a part-time job. It was a civic development company. I'm sure they're way out of business now, but It kind of felt like Wolf on Wall Street. It's like it was just crazy
One
in
of
there,
my
and you
favorite
had
movies. Yeah.
managers running up and down trying to hype you up, and we were calling random people, mainly old people, on behalf of the Fraternal Order of Police or the Sheriff's Department or something like that, soliciting donations.
Mhm.
And we didn't mention the fact that they only got 10% of the money that you donate. We kept 90%.
Yeah,
If
of
they
course.
asked, we had to tell them, but you definitely avoided that like the plague and would get old people to send you $20 all the time. It's like, it just felt wrong in my soul. Like, this lady doesn't have $20 to spend. She's just told me she's on Social Security, fixed income, but
Fixed income, that's the one,
I
yeah, that's what I
convinced
always
her
say.
to give me her grocery money, and only $2 are going to the cause she thinks she's supporting.
Yeah, but you made a
So it
cool
it was
$4,
hard.
right? So, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, man. Well, I was 16 when I got that job, so I didn't
Yeah.
care. It's like, you're telling me I can make $16 if this guy buys this thing that I know he doesn't need? Well, of course you're going to do it. And we ran political campaigns too. We ran one where it was for the US. Hey, you have to call your senator and tell him this, whatever it was, that some bill that needs to be passed or whatever. And then we'd patch you through to his home phone number and
Holy
listen to you leave a message. And if you didn't do a good enough job, we'd ask you to do it again and patch you through again. It was so silly. And they paid us less for that than they paid us to do like Verizon, Windstream, whatever it was at the time. So we always
Yeah.
hated political, but it was like a punishment. You can either be, you scam this lady too hard and, Verizon's going to find out about it. So you can either be suspended for a week or you can do political dialing for a week. It was like this punishment. I remember it was terrible. That was an
Yeah.
awful job. An awful job.
Wow. I wonder if it's the same company I was working for a while, because I also was working for call center, for Verizon. It was essentially trying to convince people to upgrade their phones and sign a new 2-year contract, and if you
Mhm.
screwed up or you weren't making your numbers, they kick you over to, NRA. So you were calling on behalf of the National Rifle Association, trying to
Yeah.
solicit donations for whatever politician, Republican, that they were backing at that time, and it was like, and nobody wanted to go to NRA. There was no commission. It was just miserable. A lot of people yelling at you, being very upset.
I
So
imagine, well, anything political like that, because I know guns are like political for whatever reason, but anything like that is like really tough because you get people who most of the time have a pretty strong opinion either way. And I
mhm,
did a political campaign one time for in Canada, we had a registry for long guns for like rifles and unrestricted. And it's gone now, but I worked on a campaign where we called people and tried to get them to sign a petition to get rid of it, which worked because it
mhm.
was gone, even though the RCMP got busted last month that they held on to it. But it was very, man, strong opinions from people. And it's like, I just work here. I don't care. I'm not on either side of the fence, but they scream at you like you're the one who's like writing the bill. But
Right.
man, call center jobs, they will make a man out of you for sure. Those
Mhm.
like you, if you want adversity, you work for a call center because you get paid very little to get yelled at an awful lot.
Yeah. But it does teach you useful skills like being able to talk to people and de-escalate and, just kind
Mhm.
of riff on the fly, which has definitely helped me out as far as like podcasting and doing YouTube videos.
Looks good
Like,
on a
it was a
resume
horrible
too.
experience, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, my first
Um,
like job where I could, get paid more than minimum wage. The only reason I
mhm,
got hired at that job is because I had a bunch of call centers on my resume and I became good at speaking from those jobs. So if I never worked in those hell jobs, I never would have got that one job, which led to the next one, which led to the next one. So they are stepping stones, but man, those were fun because everyone hates their job and there's that camaraderie, right? Like everyone like is in the same. It's like I don't want to compare it to prison. I've never been to prison, but like it's like a shithole, and you have like this. Everyone's feeling the same thing, and then I don't know. It helps you later in life. So a lot of the times you have to like wade through the shit in order to get to the rainbow or whatever stupid
yeah.
analogy I'm trying to make on the fly here.
I worked for an Amazon call center 20 years ago. So this is like
Oh
before they
wow.
went crazy. It was like the best job ever. And it was a 24-hour call center. So I went into work at midnight, worked midnight to 8 a.m. And it was great. There was maybe 12 of us there. Just kind of I don't even think we didn't even answer the phone. It was all just responding to emails and like,
Mm.
sending out $5 gift cards because their order got lost or it was like running late or something. And it was amazing. Like you could decorate your own cubicle. I had Radiohead posters and Sex Pistol posters in my little cubicle, and but it was I was at an age where I was extremely irresponsible. Like I was way too irresponsible to have that job. Like they were paying me way too much money, and when you work noon to 8 a.m., like I would get off work, I'd get breakfast, go home, and go to sleep, and essentially wake up and then go to the bar and drink until I had to go to work. So I was like showing up to work every day, just drunk off my ass.
And
But
there's probably
because
no supervision or very little supervision on
yeah,
jobs like that, right?
yeah, because usually my manager, like that was the only person above me. We would meet him at the bar. So it was like pretty much our whole team would get drunk at the Irish bar across the street and then go into work and write emails. It
Yeah,
was
sounds
great.
like every call center job I've ever worked at. Yeah.
Yeah,
See, that's exactly what there's some sort of substance that you are ingesting to make those jobs tolerable, basically, at every job I've ever worked at like that. So,
yeah,
yeah, very interesting times, but I am so glad I do not work at a call center anymore.
it's very true. But to get back to what we were talking about before we went off on this tangent, uh, I caught some flack from people that got scammed, and I was just wondering maybe you've ran into this at all, because the person that emailed sent them a message and saying, "I've got this amazing species at this ridiculously low price." That wasn't maybe there a red flag went up. They're like, "That's too good to be true," but then they like went and looked at that person's profile and they saw that maybe I follow them on Instagram or I'm friends with them on Facebook, and other people that they look up to or respect or know of were also following or friends with. So they're like, well, they must be a good person, even though like I had never heard of this person before. Like
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm maybe we're friends on Facebook, but there were times where I just was accepting anybody that sent a friend request. I was like, okay, So
Making a
uh,
bigger audience for yourself. Yeah, why not?
yeah, yeah. So it's like following someone or being friends with them on social media is not an endorsement, and I think that's a message that really needs to get out there. And I was just wondering if you've ever had any issues with that.
Never. No, I've been very
No.
lucky. I've never had anyone try to like steal my identity in terms of like making a Wickens Wicked Reptiles account or anything like that. Or I've never had any backlash about that whatsoever. I've been very lucky, but now that we're talking about it, I'm sure I'll get a DM in 5 minutes like, hey, this guy was trying to sell me and you're friends with him on Facebook. But no, I've
Yeah.
never had that before. I've been very lucky.
It's frustrating. And part of me like feels like it's your own damn fault you got scammed. Like
Yeah.
if the fact that they sent you a direct message rather than posting it publicly wasn't a red flag, or the fact that they told you they want you to pay them through a method that you have no recourse to get your money back if they scam you, like that should have been another red flag. It seems like there's all these red flags that people ignore because they're greedy or they're just really excited to get a species that they don't have already. Like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the rubber ducky isopods. They're
Mhm.
like
I have some.
yellow and gray. Yeah, beautiful. I don't know what they're going for in Canada, but down here they're like $20-25 per isopod. Like they
Yeah,
can
they're
be
crazy expensive. They
really
never used to
expensive.
be, but they are now.
Yeah, and I saw somebody on one of these isopod groups saying someone told them they would send them 10 of them for $50, but they had to send it through Cash App or Venmo I don't remember what app scammers use, but they had no way of getting their money back, and they were very upset. It's like, why would you think that was a good deal? I mean, I understand why you think that's a good deal as far as like the price, but just the fact that everyone else is selling it for 2 to 3 times that, I don't understand why somebody would believe somebody they don't know, a stranger, offer them something like that.
Yeah,
But
well, you remember
I
that
see
scene
that with
in Matilda where he's like rolling back the odometer or the odometer and he's like trying to sell cars for like really cheap but he just kind of that reminds me of that, right? Like
hmm,
you're a sleazy car salesman when you're trying to do that and people do buy into it, but yeah, I think that bringing it to people if you're watching this and anyone ever does that to you, please do not do that. Do not send these people money, and if you do make a deal with them, PayPal or some, where there's recourse to get your money back. Because if they're
yeah,
using this random app and you have to jump through all these hoops, it is too good to be true because that's exactly how it seems.
yeah, it's heartbreaking, because there's it's just a lesson. It's an expensive lesson you got to learn. It just shocks me that it's young people. Like when I think of people getting ripped off online, I always think of older people. I guess like those. This is I don't know if this happens in Canada at all, but before I went full time doing YouTube, I worked at this. It was like a gold buying store. My friend started, and mainly what we bought like gold bullion, silver bullion, coins, firearms. So in a way, it was kind of like a pawn shop, but we didn't do pawning. Like you invested in a bunch of like real gold, like gold coins and stuff, or gold jewelry, and you wanted to get cash for it. You brought it in, and we'd weigh it out and figure it out that way. But kind of in that same avenue, like the same software you use to buy gold and silver and coins and stuff, you could also buy gift cards. So if you had like $100 gift card to Target, I could give you $70 cash for it. If you just wanted the cash and not spend anything at at Target. So people would come in all the time and sell us gift cards, especially like after Christmas or after their birthday, because they just wanted the money for rent or whatever. But there's these call centers that would call these old people. They target them and act like they're the IRS, saying they're about ready to send out a sheriff to your house. We got a warrant for you. You need to stay on the phone with me, and you're gonna drive to this CVS pharmacy and buy $5,000 worth of Target gift cards, and then go to your car and give me all of the numbers off the back, and then we'll use that to pay off the money you owe the IRS, and I'll tell the sheriff to go ahead and cancel that warrant so you won't get arrested and spend the night in jail. And it's like, why in God's name would you believe the IRS wanted you to pay them in Target gift cards? Like, it blows my mind, but it
We
happened
have that
all the time.
here. It's called the CRA here instead of the IRS. Same
Hmm.
thing, same scam. It's always iTunes gift cards that you have to buy.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
that's
know
another one.
someone who it was an email and it was from our boss. It was a guy that was a sales guy where I worked. And it was like
Yeah.
from our boss's name, say was like Joe Schmo, but it was like Joe Schmo with two O's in the email address, but looked
Hmm.
identical otherwise. And it was, hey, we'll call him Dan. Hey, Dan, you got to go buy these things and scratch them off the back and then, give them to me. And then I'll reimburse you when you get back to the office. And
Yeah.
we all watched it. He walked into, the boss's office and was like, hey, like, here's the gift cards, where's my money? And just the look on his face. And we all realized immediately what had happened because we all got that email. But this guy was in his late 60s still working. And he was all of us laughed. We were
Yeah.
laughing. Like, obviously, this is fake. And this guy fell for it. And I bet you there's a lot of people that fall. And what
Yeah.
we get
Yeah.
here is I live really close. I live in a college town. We have a university and a college here and it's a
Sure.
lot of Chinese students, like tons. So we get these messages that are all in Chinese, and someone that I know who speaks Chinese translated it because I get these all the time. It'll just be like this, Chinese voice, and then this music in the background. It sounds like like a Chinese restaurant. That's kind of what it sounds like, like a calming, Mulan soundtrack. And yeah, it says you're going to get deported if you don't pay your student loans immediately, and it's the same sort of scam, but they're smart enough to do it in my area code in Chinese because they know there's a ton of people here that only speak Chinese. It's kind of
Nice.
brilliant, but it's also
Yeah.
kind of sad.
Yeah. They hated us because, these people, like, they're just calling. I don't know if they like have a list of people that are, on the AARP mailing list or something, but somehow they're able to, get the phone numbers of people that are over 50 and target them. But they didn't know what area it is. So they would just kind of, the scammer would get on the internet and Google where to buy gift cards, to try to determine the closest place to buy gift cards, compared to where this person is located. And anybody in our town, the first result, because we spent so much time on SEO at that business, one of our big ads was "We buy gift cards." So if you type in "where to buy gift cards," our business would come up. So they would tell them to go to our shop to buy the gift cards, but we don't sell gift cards; we buy gift cards. So they would come in and be like, "I need to get $2,000 in Google Play gift cards or Apple gift cards or something," and like have the phone in their hand and be like, "Yeah, I'm in here right now." And it's like, do you know that person you're talking to? And then like ask the situation, they'd explain it to us, and we'd be like, you're in the process of being scammed right now. Like, you're lucky you came in here. Don't give them any money. Don't buy these gift cards. They're scamming you. Like, no, 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 no. They're with the IRS. I'm like, hang up and call the IRS right now and get back in touch with that person. I bet you can't. Half the time we'd be able to convince that person they were getting scammed and they would just hang up and go home embarrassed. But sometimes they were very adamant. Like, they were really working to give that scammer their money, completely ignore us, get mad at us for not helping them out, and leave and go to the next business down the road. It's like, all right, your money. You want to give it to them. Like, you'll learn by tomorrow.
It is.
It was,
It's weird thing, right? Because like if you're threatened with jail, like that is a very motivating thing. Like I'll do whatever you want, but you do, yeah. Like why is the IRS want gift cards? Like it doesn't. Like there's so much it doesn't make sense there. So
yeah.
it's sad to see, but it happens. And here we've got like our hydroelectric company, and there's always a scam every few years, or like cable, whatever, where they'll have a badge, it says Google on it. We're a rep from Google or whatever, and they'll try to like push their way in your door. We need to look at your furnace right now. It's about to blow up. And they're just
Oh,
scammers and
wow.
they'll be in your house and they won't leave until you buy whatever. And they target old people. And I've had one come to my door. It's like, I know exactly what you are. And I'm not very big, but I promise you, you're not pushing your way in this door. And you
Yeah.
see on Twitter all the time, like the hydroelectric company, these guys are scammers. And it's like, yeah, you're a hydroelectric company. They're wearing Google name tags to look official. Like, you're not
Yeah.
affiliated with Google, are you?
It doesn't happen too much, that type of scam in West Virginia. That's probably because this area is kind of known for you're born with a rifle in your hand. It's like
Yeah, we get
I don't
that a lot here. We get that
I
a
don't know
lot. There's
anybody
no
that doesn't have
like
a gun by their front door.
yes, there's very few people. There's more than you think, right? But yeah, and the thing is too, like I'm a gun guy. I have a gun license. I own guns. I like to shoot guns, but I can't defend my home with a gun. Like that, I go to jail. So if you break in my house
Wow.
and you hurt my family, and then I shoot you, I go to jail, not you. So that's the way it is in Canada. Another motivating reason to move to a castle doctrine state.
Mhm.
But yeah, so here it's like there's no really like if you break in someone's house, you're going to be pretty safe unless they have a dog. So you see that a lot, and it's a college town. So you like, and with a lot of old people, we're a really old city as well. So you
Yeah.
can very easily trick a college kid who barely speaks the language, and it's easy to trick an old person because oh, you're here to see my furnace. We used to have repair guys in my day, so
Yeah.
yeah, you see that a lot here. It's kind of crazy how often.
Yeah, it just sucks that it's getting into the exotic pet hobby to the extent that it is, and it feels like, at least from what I've seen, because I just really started kind of delving into the isopod and jumping spider Facebook groups, and it's essentially the same people. Like they're like, "Oh, this guy ripped me off for $200. I was trying to buy isopods, and he's completely ghosted me." And they'll post the screenshots, and I'm like, "That guy got kicked out of our group like 6 months ago for trying to do the same stuff with tarantulas." So it's like they know enough about exotic pets to pull some and a lot of times the pictures they send are just off of a dealer's website. Like they just do a Google image
Or
search.
Google, they put no
Yeah.
effort into it at all. They just rip the first picture. I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a guy reach trying to scam me, which kind of just blew my mind. I was like, why are you going for the guy that runs the group to scam? But like a whole bunch of other people, and his profile picture on Facebook was of Peter McKinnon. And I was like, do you not think I know who that is? Like you are definitely not Peter McKinnon.
Pretty recognizable face. Why do you pick a
Yeah.
6 million subscriber channel to like that seems so you're not very good at scamming. You need to go back to scammer school. But I think
Yeah.
it's like no matter what your hobby is, man, like I remember in the gyms and there'd be guys selling fake steroids and stuff like that, or fake supplements and bigger, stronger, faster. They made fake supplements and showed you how easy it is to scam people into buying them. So
Oh wow.
it's the same thing. And I hope that we really don't see it here. It seems like there's a lot of really smart people in these hobbies. So hopefully we don't see that happen here. But yeah, and that's why I'm like a really big into how Canadians run expos. We really vet people very well. I very rarely see people with a scale rot snake or because the guy who runs them here, Grant, he is like no nonsense. If he sees you with something that you shouldn't have, you're gone. See you later. And it seems like in the States, just watching Go Herping's video, so maybe like one source isn't the best way to make up my mind, but he seems to think that it's very lax there. And you get people who like buy from this table and then go to this table and sell for $40 more than they bought it for. And you don't see that here.
Yeah.
Of all the things, I talk a lot of shit about Canada, but the way we run reptile expos here, there is no one better than Grant at running reptile expos for sure.
What exactly goes into the vetting process? Do you know?
I think it's more like, well, if people don't know who you are, like I don't know if they sit you down and talk to you or what the exact thing is, but it's more than just oh, you've got $80 for a table or whatever it costs. And a lot of the time too, like if you have a bad reputation because it's a small community in Canada, we have a very small population, a
That's
very
a good
small
point.
population of reptile keepers.
Yeah.
So if we know you're a bad apple, you're out. Like all of us know immediately because we all kind of talk. And even people that don't like each other, even the guys who are the 6-year-old people who I've been doing this forever and I hate you because you're a YouTuber, even
Yeah.
they will say to you, hey, man, I see that you're talking to this. Don't talk to that guy. So I think it's just because we have a tight knit community here, it's just easier to vet people because if you're a bad apple, everybody knows about you immediately. And it's not like you can go where in California, you've got 30 million people, and then you can go to Texas and however many they have there, and nobody knows you, but you have a huge market. In Canada, I mean, Toronto is if you're doing bad stuff in Toronto, which is where most of the expos are, every other big city knows who you are because there's so few of them.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I've actually seen that, like, at an expo. I've seen a dealer before, like, when the VIP hours before the expo actually opens to the public, go around and see some guy that mainly sells, like, geckos or, ball pythons, has, like, 10 or 20, like, one species of tarantula or whatever that they bred, and they'll buy all of them. 'em. They'll just be like, "Give me a bulk price on all of them. 'em, I'll buy them right now," and then take them to their table and just change the price tags on them and sell
No,
them as retail. It's like, but I mean, that's a hustle, it's like they
mhm.
know that, but it's also kind of shady, I guess, in a way.
I personally don't see any problem with that. because like as long as you're not mistreating the animal, I personally don't see
Right.
any problem with that. I mean, like I'm a big fan of capitalism. Like, it might not be popular, but at the end of the day, you're taking something that you can buy for a cheaper price, and it's the same way that everything you've ever bought works. So as long as you're treating the animal okay, I have no problem with people doing that. I mean, it's just if you're the guy who sold them, that's a possibility, right? So, what are you complaining about?
Well, the only issue, this is probably more of an issue in the invert hobby than maybe the reptile hobby, but there's a major problem with wild caught tarantulas making it into the hobby, where
Mhm.
people, they'll either buy from some kind of distributor that's just catching them out in the wild and selling them. Um, so it's like you want to buy captive bred, but when somebody does something like that, they buy a bunch of tarantulas from somebody that doesn't typically sell tarantulas. They have really no way of ensuring you that these are captive bred, that they didn't just pull a female out of the wild and took her egg sac and split them up and is now selling them as slings. So it's
Yeah, that is a
I kind of like
legitimate
having
problem.
that chain of
Yeah,
custody.
mislabeling stuff. Yeah, I totally agree. That is not okay. And yeah, I'm thinking more along the lines of like if you buy from someone, but you actually know what they are and stuff, and like you're just
Yeah.
capitalizing, that's a different thing. But yeah, if
Oh
you're
yeah.
misrepresenting what things are, like that is never okay. That's a big no no.
Yeah. What you're talking about, that's just good business sense. Like,
Yeah,
that's
and
that's how you run a
unpopular,
business.
but it's a free market, man. That's how it
Yeah.
works. But yeah,
Yeah.
you don't really see that a lot here, where people try to like sell, or they'll like hybrids is another really big thing, and people hate hybrids, especially with snakes and stuff. Like if you take
Hmm.
a Woma python and a ball python and make hybrids, or Burmese people, man, I got in so much trouble for this one, talking about how if you want a Burmese python, but it's a little bit too big for you, then maybe you want to think about getting a dwarf Burmese python, which isn't a hybrid. It's just a dwarf. It comes from islands, right? Same thing with retics, same sort of thing, locality. And I got in trouble for this from the same guy who called me a Dumelsboa shill, because if I'm promoting getting these dwarf Burmese pythons, then someone's going to misrepresent it, and then someone's going to go home with a 12-foot snake instead of a 6-foot snake. And you see the same thing with hybrids, where if I
Yeah.
say, hey, like what a really cool thing is a berm ball, as long as you're not trying to co-mix them, and yeah, it's like a whole can of worms. But I think as long as you're selling something and you're telling someone exactly what it is, as long as the animal's okay, what's the issue? I don't see what the issue is.
Yeah. In the tarantula hobby, they call them hobby forms or hybrids, mainly hybrids, but sometimes they'll refer to them as hobby forms because that's uh, putting a little bit of lipstick on the pig there. But
Yeah.
you definitely don't want those. Like if you have a hybrid, you're pretty much looked down upon in the hobby because everybody wants true blood, or is that not true blood? That's a vampire show. They
Pure
want
blood?
pure blood. That's it. Yeah. You don't want to mix species.
Hmm.
And that's an issue because there are a lot of tarantula species that are they're different species, but they're close. They're related enough that they can actually breed. And sometimes, that they'll have an egg sac, and sometimes we saw that with the curly hair. There's some of the more popular basic tarantulas in the hobby have kind of been interbred or not interbred, crossbred with closely related species and create these hybrid hobby forms. And anybody that's a responsible keeper won't breed that. They'll have it in their collection maybe, and when they realize it's a hybrid, they definitely don't breed it because they don't want to, muddy the gene pool anymore.
That's a
But it,
big thing. Yeah,
yeah,
muddying the gene pool, right? And I think that there's a big difference. And with snakes, you see this a lot, where like I personally have no problem if you want to take a Burmese python and a ball python, get a bigger version of a ball python with the temperament. I got no problem with that. No one's going to think it's something that it's not. The problem, in my opinion, and what I think a lot of people would agree in the reptile community, is if you take something like an Indonesian blue tongue skink and you mix it with a northern, and then you start selling them as, because we can't bring any more northerns in. Australia can't, ship out
yeah,
animals. So what we have here is all we have. So people don't like that. And I agree with that, because you're trying to keep what is pure, pure, because you can't get any more of them. So if you muddy it too much, then they might go away. But Burmese pythons and ball pythons aren't going away. So if you mix, I think that's why there's like a double standard for certain species, I guess. And same thing with
that's
boas. People
interesting.
like to keep localities pure as well.
Yeah, yeah. With tarantulas, you see this a lot. That you'll have problems breeding a specific species. Like for a long time, from what I understand, I'm not a breeder or anything, but people were having a hard time getting Grammostola pulchra bred in captivity. And it turns out the issue was there was actually two different species that were being sold as Grammostola pulchra. They looked nearly identical, and it wasn't until recently they discovered that they were separate, even though they looked identical. One was like the Grammostola cuargi, and that's probably why they were. You're breeding two spiders you thought were the same species. They weren't producing an egg sac because they really weren't all that compatible. It was a very rare circumstance that you would actually get a successful breeding. But people look at ball pythons, and I'm not picking on ball pythons, but it just seems to be the biggest headache in my life is people are like, we get all these cool morphs from ball pythons, or why can't we do that with tarantulas? And it's like, well, that's like saying you got a whole bunch of different breeds of dogs, but they're all still canines. That they're all the
Mhm.
same species. They through selective breeding created all these different breeds. Like you can't really do that with tarantulas. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, because I think people kind of confuse making morphs, which are the same species, with making different species out of two different species. And I think that's where people get kind of confused. And that's why I try to make videos about hybrids and morphs and like try to
Yeah.
dispel that. Because it's once you realize it, once someone tells you, it's like, oh, and then like you are no longer confused with reptiles. But I think with inverts, it's very. I think everything looks so similar, and we don't really have that here. Like we have families where, for example, Antaresia, one of my favorite genuses of snakes that there are, spotted pythons, children pythons, Stinson's pythons, and pygmy pythons. But Stinson's pythons are no longer a thing. They are children's pythons now. We've grouped them together because they're so similar. Where it seems
Mhm.
like what you guys do is you split them up. Like you do DNA testing and there becomes more, not fewer.
Yeah. I This kind of segues into something I've been curious about. I was watching oh man, I want to forget his name. Uh he always says like Rattle On, that
Oh,
guy.
Dave Kaufman.
Dave Kaufman, yeah. He was talking, and I think I was in one of your videos as well. You were talking about how the hognose steak, it was like the Western, now it's the plains or something like that. Like what
Yeah.
happened there? What's that situation?
So Western hognose snakes can so plains hognose snakes, dusty hognose snakes, Mexican hognose snakes, and I think there was another one, and they were all just called westerns. So I guess in this case, we did the opposite. We actually made four species out of one, and they're also similar. If I showed you a dusty versus a plains, you would never be able to tell the difference, right? It's like
Yeah.
very minute. So I don't know why we did that, but in my limited experience, because I've only been doing this for like 13 years or whatever, I've seen
Mhm.
more things going together or changing, right? Like scrub pythons used to be in a certain family and now they're no longer. So things change all the time, but I do get a lot of flack about that because I used to make a lot of content about Western hognose snakes. I still call them Westerns to this day, or boas. They're no longer
Yeah.
BCIs, they're BIs. So it's no longer boa constrictor imperator. It's just boa imperator. And there's no BCC. Boa constrictor constrictor is just boa constrictor. And if you in a video say this is my boa constrictor when really what you have is a boa imperator, then I mean there's a fire down below in the comments there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I always thought of hognose snakes as being like a Midwest or Western thing here in the US, and there's a, professor here in our town, he's like a biology professor at the local university, and, I think our kids went to scouts together or something, but so we're friends on Facebook, and I saw him this post about going herping, and he found some hognose snakes and rattler, like I think it was a timber rattler, and just he found a whole bunch of really cool snakes, and that I didn't even realize were in this state. It was kind of like, dude, let me go with you next time and film that. Like, I just thought we had like some garter snakes and a couple rat snakes.
Yeah,
Uh,
we have eastern hognose snakes here. Not really in my area so much, but in
yeah,
Ontario, we have easterns, which are there's a different coloration. They're much more likely to play dead. They're much more likely to musk on you. They don't do well in captivity. They don't really eat rodents that well. Like Snake Discovery has been trying to get hers on rodents. I'm not sure how it's going, but very
what
different.
are
And
they?
then there's like the tricolors, and then
What
there's like the Madagascar ones, which aren't even in the same family. Hognose snakes are like really cool, and there's like a lot of different ones to choose from.
what does the eastern hognose snake typically eat then?
Amphibians mostly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so a lot of the times, like even westerns eat amphibians, especially as babies, like tadpoles and frogs and stuff. So I've in the past, the reason I have toads is so I can scent pinkies with toads to make babies eat because I breed hognose snakes. So you get that. So instead of feeding them, something that's hard to get, it's hard to get captive bred toads and frogs and stuff like that are affordable to feed. So you just scent it, like you just make the pinky mouse smell like a toad. But yeah,
Yeah,
westerns are cool. I've seen easterns here, but mostly what you see here are garter snakes, ribbon snakes, fox snakes are really cool. Eastern milk snakes. You can see like ringneck snakes and Decay's
yeah.
brown snakes here. I saw a Decay's brown snake the other day. We've got one of the only natural escarpments in the world here in Niagara, and I walk along the bottom of it every day, and a lot of the times I'll see fox snakes or like there's houses across the road, and then there's just woods here, so it's
Yeah.
very cool the biodiversity with snakes. But we've got one lizard, 5 line skinks. That's it. If you want to see lizards, you get one opportunity, and I've never seen one in the wild.
Oh wow, that's pretty crazy. So when you move to the U.S., are you able to? Because I had no desire. I didn't even really know about hognose snakes until we did our collab, and you suggested it as a good reptile for tarantula keepers. And
Mhm.
I've really been considering adding one since then, just because they are fascinating. But you're breeding them. You have them in your collection. If you move to the U.S., can you bring your reptiles with you, or do you have to like sell them all off and then buy new ones when you get to the U.S.? Have you looked into
Um,
that at all?
Well, so yes, I can bring some. There are some, like my Burmese pythons, I can't bring because it's illegal to bring Burmese pythons into the country of the United States. There's certain ones that I can and cannot. I'm pretty sure my spotted python has to stay behind because of the CITES restriction on it. But I have to talk to somebody about it. Hognose snakes, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure can travel to and fro across the border pretty easily, just with like the regular inspection and going through the right channels. So I'm definitely gonna be able to bring my hognose snakes. I'm pretty sure, but there are certain ones like if I can't bring Diamond, my bearded dragon, like that, it's not a deal breaker, but like I would miss that guy. So, I would have to find the perfect home for him. But
Yeah,
I'm gonna be able to bring most of what I have.
yeah. I would think. What is he again?
Diamond's a bearded dragon.
Bearded dragon. Yeah. I mean, they're
Yeah, which is an Australian animal, so there is a CITES thing, but you
mm,
can bring them in from Germany. So I don't really know. I
yeah. I
have to
mean,
talk to
they
someone
have them
more
at the
knowledgeable.
local pet shops. I would
Yeah,
think it would be an issue if they have them in mass at the shops, but
yeah.
yeah, it's
So
those laws are weird. Like I have some species of tarantula, like I couldn't leave the state with them, which is kind of because then now they're endangered. Like they weren't when I got them as spiderlings, but they've been moved to an endangered species list. And technically, I'm not sure if it's CITES or Lacey Act, but I can't move them across state lines. So it's like I'm stuck here until they die, or I have to give them to somebody else,
yeah, I
which
think
is always
Burms are like
heartbreaking.
that too. You can't bring Burmese pythons across state lines. I'm pretty sure now. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure I heard that. But yeah, it's weird how
Yeah.
like the U.S. is very much like it's kind of like that in Canada too, but it's like city to city, like bylaws. And the way we do it here is like a few years ago, someone had all their monocle cobras stolen,
Oh wow.
which were legal at the time, and then because it made the news, they like now there's a new bylaw immediately. So another city, there was an alligator that got loose and a car hit it. So now alligators are which they always were, by the way, but then they just cracked down on a bunch of other things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just trying to like I keep it low key. My neighbors don't know what I do. I don't want to like bring my big Burmese python out and have the SPCA called and then I ruin it for everybody because then the city is like, oh well, it's scared of neighbors. So yeah, you just got to be here. It's like very touchy. The cities just kind of do things without like on a whim kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what one of the things I like about West Virginia. It's a very much live and let live state, like mind your own business. Sometimes that's a bad thing,
Mhm.
like sometimes
Texas is
stuff's
like that
going
too,
on
right?
that yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you know. It's like my neighbor's doing something stupid. It's like, well, he's on his own property. As long as he's not going to be burning down my house, set off as many fireworks as you want in your backyard. I
In
don't.
my opinion, that's how life should be. Why do you care what I'm doing? It's none of your business what I have or don't have as long as I'm not hurting an animal or a person or a kid or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
here it's not it's not like that at all. Actually, uh in Canada, if you have a gun license, you forfeit privacy. So the RCMP runs a background check on you every day. So I have a background check on me today, yesterday, the day before, my birthday, Jesus'
Jeez.
birthday. Every day I get a background check. And if the RCMP suspects me of a crime, they can walk in my house on 24 hours notice. So I forfeit my privacy in order to have a
Mm,
gun license, which is silly. And then you look at places like Texas and it's like, yeah, no, that's fine. You get a monkey? Cool. What color is it? Because I don't need to go in and check it out. Like I'm curious. So
yeah.
that is another driving force for me to move to a place like that. Because it's like be a good person, but it's none of my business what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, even some states, it's different state by state. Like you go to New York or California, it's going to be it's going to be a pain to purchase a gun. But,
Mhm.
I grew up down, like right on, and still in West Virginia, but on the border with Kentucky. And my dad would take me to, they called them like swap meets, like gun
Mhm.
shows, essentially in a parking lot. A bunch of guys with folding tables and a whole bunch of rifles and pistols. And you just gave them cash. They gave you the gun, no background check, no registration, nothing. And people they get really upset about that. It's like I understand, especially if you're in California or Chicago or something where gun violence is a real issue. But a lot of these guys are shooting coyotes on their property or hunting deer, or, just wanting to protect their families. So they don't want to register it with the government and
Well,
get a
here in
background check and all
Canada,
that.
well, because that's the thing, right? Is like my whole thing with reptiles is when I talked about the Florida thing is that if registration leads to confiscation, and if you think that I'm lying about that, just look at what Canada did with guns last May, right? If you
Mm,
registered, you have ARs, they're gone. They know who you are, they're coming for them, they're illegal now. But with and it's funny too, because like in BC, British Columbia, northern British Columbia, I went there for a wedding a few years back. There's a city, and then around it is, if you look out on Google Maps, it looks like you're in the middle of Narnia. There is nothing there. So, and
yeah.
it's so spread out. So if you go hunting for deer or elk, the smart thing to do in the US is you would bring a really big revolver or like a big caliber sidearm just in case, right? Because in
Right.
Canada, you're only allowed to have a certain amount of rounds in your gun. So if you shoot two, you miss, or you need another one, the easy thing is to have a sidearm. In Canada, illegal. Doesn't matter if you're on your own property. You cannot have a handgun, period. The only way that you're allowed to have that, it has to be locked up, or you can bring it to a range or a gunsmith, but you have to call the sheriff first to let them know that you're leaving your house with it. So it's
Wow.
like people talk about common sense, but common sense to me is if there's grizzlies, which there are in British Columbia, and
Yeah.
when I say grizzlies, when you stand next to one of these things, you don't even real like, how is this on this planet? If you see a grizzly or a moose in real life, they look like
Yeah.
the creatures from Narnia. And
Oh, I know.
so it's just very silly. You're very prone, and it's our government that's like, well, it's unsafe for you to go in the middle of the woods with this thing that might save your life. And we've seen
Yeah.
it where people get eaten by bears because they just ran out of arrows or ran out of what they're allowed to do by law.
I lived up in Kodiak, Alaska for a little bit, like for like 5 or 6 months,
So
and
you know exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah, like we went to go look at grizzly bears at the dump because I was like, I've been here for 2 months, I have yet to see a Kodiak bear, and they're like, oh, you want to see it? Like,
Mhm.
we'll show you like 5 or 6 of them this afternoon. Come on,
And when you look
and
at
those
them,
things,
you can't even believe what you're seeing, right? Like
yeah, it's
it's not
wild.
like a black bear. Like you see a black bear, and you're like, oh, that thing looks scary. And then I saw a grizzly on the side of the road in Jasper one time. And man, that was like, I couldn't even believe, or the first time I saw a moose in Timmins, Ontario, I couldn't even believe what I was looking at. I knew they were big, but you don't realize how big they are until your car's right. And you realize why a semi is going to hit this thing. And like the moose is going to make a giant dent. Like you'd think that you'd go through this thing with a tractor trailer. They'll
Yeah,
destroy your tractor trailer because these things are like, they're boulders with fur
yeah,
and antlers.
they're massive.
Man,
It's
animals
pretty
are
wild.
insane, and it's like you see them on TV and you don't really get a appreciation for them, and that's why when people watch Tiger King and you don't, and then you go to a zoo and you see a real tiger, and then you're like, oh, he had hundreds of these. Like you don't realize what formidable animals they are until you actually go and see one. So I don't know, animals to me, not just reptiles or inverts or whatever, are incredible. And I think that when people see them in real life, they get like this appreciation that they would never get otherwise. Sometimes you
a
you
hundred
know crap your
percent.
pants because you're standing next to one. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I don't advertise. I mean, locally. You know what I mean? Like, I don't show my neighbors my basement. I don't really like my friends or my kids' friends coming down and seeing them. I mean, sometimes, if it's a good friend, somebody he's known for years and we know their parents and everything's cool, then yeah, come down, check out the tarantulas and the snakes, and they get very fascinated by them, and I like that. But like the person that lives next door to me, they don't know I have hundreds of tarantulas and scorpions in my basement, and I don't make that public knowledge. And it's a little scary sometimes because like I know there's no regulations on them, but I also know that if enough people get upset and they could have create a city ordinance or I don't think they'll pass anything at a state level, but it's like I just don't want that hassle, so I don't broadcast it. Just like I don't take my guns out on my front porch and clean them or anything. It's like that's private. That's mine. And it's funny because I'm making YouTube videos about them, but
Mhm.
it's like maybe like 5 people in town know that I even have a YouTube channel, so it's not something I got to worry about. But it is when it comes to like what we were talking about a little bit ago, like with species that are protected by CITES, there's some really cool tarantulas out there that I'd really like to have. And many people do. They just kind of ignore the laws, because it's like well, they're not being enforced regularly or heavily. So they'll go ahead and ship these tarantulas back and forth, or they'll move across state lines with species of Poecilotheria that technically they're not allowed to. and they get away with it and it's no problem. And people are like, hey, you're stressing out about nothing. And it's like, well, my situation's different than theirs. Like
Mhm.
I am publicly putting this stuff out there on YouTube. So Fish and Wildlife Service, they watch my videos, they know what species of tarantulas I have. And then if they see in the video that I moved from West Virginia to Arizona, and that same species that was in my basement in West Virginia is now in the basement in Arizona, I just gave them all of the proof they need to send me $100,000 fine or lock me up for 6 months. So because I'm making YouTube videos, because you're making YouTube videos, we got to be a little bit more careful about, making sure we're being a good example of following these laws, even if we don't agree with them.
And kind of on that same thing, like people oftentimes on forums and Facebook groups will kind of like come down on you for what you're doing. But if you really think about it, we are the guys who are most accountable with what we do in terms of not just the care of our animals, but what we keep, how we keep them, and how we talk about them. Because the guys who
Mhm.
are in their basements with their collection, there's no eyes on them, but there's eyes on my collection and your collection every week, right?
Yeah.
So we are more accountable than everybody else. And I think that's why it's so important for us to do the right thing and don't take your tarantulas outside and show everybody. And well, and I didn't get in trouble, but I had the SPCA come to my house. I, lived a little bit farther away from where I am now. We
Yeah.
just moved here last summer. And there was someone who came to our house and, my ex-girlfriend's friend at the time and saw all our reptiles because she showed her. And this person was a drama queen and she called the SPCA and they came and looked at my collection and saw there was nothing wrong. But that was something that it was like a stress thing, right? Like, what is someone going to see? Is this guy going to see something? Does he have a preconceived notion? He doesn't like snakes already. Is he going to take this to the city? So it is
Mhm.
something where because I had reptiles and people didn't know, I had to deal with the authorities. And this guy was
Yeah.
cool. And he's like, man, you take great care of your animals. This is before I had a channel. But now here, I wonder what my neighbors think I do. Because my truck doesn't leave for a week at a time. My girlfriend is a veterinary technician, so she leaves every morning. And then here I am with the nice truck and the nice new lawnmower. And it's like, what is this guy? Is it like, is she making the money or like, what's this guy do? But I don't want to, I tell everybody I'm a video editor because I don't want them to be like, oh, well,
Yeah.
what do you have? And then all of a sudden the SPCA comes again and rooting
It's a good
around and you
idea.
get the wrong guy and he doesn't like, you know what I mean? So it's the
Yeah.
same along the same lines of what you're saying is like what I have is my business and the business of 102,000 people who watch me on YouTube, I guess.
Yeah. I'm gonna start using that line. I'm a video editor. I just
Yeah,
tell people I work from home.
that's what I tell everybody. I tell everybody I'm a
But
video editor. What kind of videos do you edit? Oh, mostly animal stuff and stuff. Anything I've seen? I don't know, maybe. Like I don't really get into it. Even yesterday,
yeah.
like, what are you getting your COVID shot for? Is it work or health? It's health, 100%. It's not because I need to leave and go across the border. And the only way I'm going to be allowed how is if I have this thing. It's because of health. I'm very concerned as
Yeah.
I'm 30 years old with no health conditions that this thing is going to kill me. So that's why for
I
health.
just assume my neighbors think I sell drugs and I'm really bad at it because I never have any customers.
I always wonder what these because I've talked to my neighbors. I'm friendly with them, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey man, I'm ran out of gas for my snowblower. Like, I'll give them gas, that type of thing. And but yeah, very rarely do they ever talk about because they're all retired. Everyone I live around is retired, so they don't really take
Yeah.
interest, which is nice. It's very nice. But I
Yeah.
wonder all the time, what do people think I do on the street? Because I don't look like a drug dealer.
Yeah.
I don't think, but I don't know what's a drug
Yeah.
dealer look like. I guess.
Well, I mean, my street, like, I know the neighbors, like, I wave to them and say hi, but we don't get in each other's business, even though it's a little dead end street that I'm on. Like, the guy next door to me over here, he works nights, and he plays a lot of video games. That's all I know. I don't even know his name, and he's been my neighbor for years.
The nice
We
thing
just
around
kind of,
here too is it's like a lot of students. Like I grew up,
mm,
it's funny, like I live in this house now, and across the street, 2 houses down, is the house I grew up in. I lived there for 21 years. So I know the neighborhood very
wow.
well. People don't know I'm the same kid that delivered their paper 20 years ago, and I don't tell them that. But yeah, it's like a lot of students here, like tons, because the university is right up the hill. And yeah, so they don't ask questions because they're only here for a few months a year. They're not trying to get to know you. It's not like, since we're going to be living, it's like, I'm here for a little bit. I don't really care. I'll wave to you. And also, this, I don't know what it's like in West Virginia, but here, it's not super friendly. Like, you don't say hello when you walk by people. It's just very, everyone's like, on their own type thing.
Yeah, and that's not a U.S. thing. I know it's because I grew up here in West Virginia, and it was like if you walk by somebody and you didn't smile and say hi or at least give them a head nod, you were a rude asshole, And then it's like I moved to Florida, and I'm like waving and saying hi to people as I pass them on the street, and they're like, "That dude's insane." Like, why? I don't know him. Why are you saying hi to me? And it's like, I was being polite. I thought that's what we did. So it's definitely at least something here in West Virginia, but it's like, I don't talk to my neighbors. I don't know them on a personal level, but I know that if I needed help or they needed help, you'd be there. Like, that's kind of like like mind your own business. But if somebody asks for help, then you better be there, because if tables were turned, they'd be there for you. So
Yeah,
that's one thing I really like about this area.
I don't think it's like a country versus because here, like I live close enough to Toronto where it's like big city, I guess, right? But my
Hmm.
dad grew up in Nova Scotia, so he when he moved here, he's like, "Why is everyone such a dick?" Like you there, you say hello to everybody. You know, like when I go out west to go visit my best friend lives in Edmonton, you go out there, everybody knows each other, and his name's Richard too. Hey, Richard, what's up? Like you just talk to each other. But
Yeah.
here, it's not like that. And the thing that I really love about Texas, and when I watch all these videos, what's it like to live in Houston? Is there's a guy and his whole channel is about like, you know, I used to live here, here, here. The reason I settled in Houston is here. And the one point he drives home is everybody says hello. If you need a cup of sugar, it's like the 40s. Like you can go and borrow it at your neighbor's house. Everyone knows, you know, like, oh, I saw that your kids didn't, is everything okay? Where here, it's not like that at all. So I would love a community like that. And that's kind of like another thing about Texas that I've never, you know, I don't actually know, but it seems like everyone there kind of says like there's a sense of community that this is lacking. Like just where I live here, like this area of Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and I know that my neighbors, they're not going to call the, ASPCA or what, the authorities on me more than likely, but I just want to keep that part of my life kind of private. And it sucks because like air conditioning went out, like the unit outside, the air conditioning unit that hooks up to the heat pump or the you know what I'm talking about. It just died. It was old. So I had to have a repairman come out, and he has to go through the basement to, from like where he's looking at the central air, like the heat pump, and then walk pretty much walk through my collection to go out the other back door to check out the AC unit. And he's like, "What is in all these enclosures?" So, I showed him, I talked to him. He ended up spending like 20 minutes and just kind of like asking questions. I mean, like, he was kind of fascinated. He was scared of scared of spiders, but being in the enclosure and me just kind of talking to him, he seemed to develop some interest. And then he was like, "I can't fix it. I'm going to have to send a salesman out so we can get you, a different unit to replace it." So then the same thing with the salesman. He comes to us like, "What in the world is in your basement? What are all these enclosures?" And I was like almost nervous, like showing these guys. It's like, you know, I don't know you, and I don't, I know I'm completely within the laws, but I also know that it's a small town, and you're going to start telling people, and the gossip, rumors will start, flying around, and before I know it, I'm going to have some inspector from the city coming by wanting to, make sure I have some kind of weird, like permit or something for keeping live animals. It's
I have
frustrating.
I have the exact same setup. My furnace room is in my reptile room. So if anyone
Yeah.
has to come here for air conditioning, furnace, or even like we're getting a gas fireplace put in where our wood burning one is, but the trap for where all the ash would go is in the furnace room. So every first thing I say, like, well, which room is it? This one. Are you afraid of snakes? Because there's 100 snakes in there, and you always get like, okay. And then they open it, and you look at their face, like, oh my god, like what is going on? And everybody's been super cool. I had like this kid. He looked like Aaron Carter. I forget his name. He looked like he was in a boy band. He walked in
Yeah.
there, and I thought for sure he was gonna. He's like, man, what's this? Can I take one out? And I've never had a bad experience with it, but there might be that time you get that guy who's like, the only good snake is a dead snake, and then yeah, it just never ends well in that case. But same
Yeah.
exact setup as you, man. Everyone who services my house has to see the collection because the furnace is in that room. There's no way to get around it.
Yeah, and I mean, so far I've had no issues, but I just kind of keep that mindset of like real gangsters don't have to tell you they're a gangster.
Yep.
It's like real tarantula and snake keepers don't need to broadcast that to everybody they come across and be like,
Mm.
"Hey, look what I'm doing down here in my basement." It's like, no,
Yeah, I'm
that's my
definitely
business. Like, I'll put it
definitely
on
not one of those
YouTube, but
guys that talks about my collection unless you ask about it. Like I try to hide the fact that I'm a YouTuber as a profession. Like I don't but you see other people and they're like super and it's cool, right? Because I think at the same time it is good if you have reptiles and you talk about it a lot because it piques people's
mhm,
interest. But most people don't have hundreds of thousands of people like us watching them. They're not on display. So you can say, oh, I've got 3 king snakes at home and no one will ever see them. The only person that knows about it is the person you're talking to. Where if
mhm.
I say it to you right now, well, all your viewers and all your listeners hear it too. So it's just a different thing. And like, by no means are we like famous or anything, but at the
Yeah.
same time, there is a tiny little spotlight on us, and it is a little bit different for people on the internet than it is in conversation.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just a spotlight, it's like documentation. It's like they
Yeah.
have video proof that you have this
Mhm.
species in this location. So I've got two fans in town. One and each one works at a different pet shop. So it's like
Oh
I
yeah.
like walked into a pet shop one day to get some crickets, and there was this girl there was like, "You're that guy." And I'm like, "Are you talking about me? Like what guy?" She's like, "I watched your videos last night about tarantulas. I have a tarantula." And I'm like, "Oh." She's like, "I can't believe you live here." I'm like, "Yep, that's me."
My Burmese
But
python that I bought, the guy, I showed up at his house and he kind of like, he looked like he saw a ghost. And it's like, I'm just some jerk off with a camera, right? Like, I'm not like some famous guy. He's like, I can't even believe I'm talking to you. And it's funny because this kid was like 15 and he's
yeah,
towering over me. And I feel like this little kid, he's like, he's looking up to me, but like breaking his neck, looking down. So, and the reptile shop here, Niagara Exotics, I love this place. If you're in Niagara, this is the place to go. And they play my videos on their TV in the shop. And it's cool. Like
nice.
sometimes I'll walk in there and I'll see myself and people will turn around and be like, that's you're on the TV. Like, so yeah, it's very cool. The community here is awesome. In the region that I live, the community is really cool. And yeah, people, it's fun because like I have a platform. So yeah, there is a feel good feeling about like walking into the pet shop and you're the guy. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it is a pretty cool feeling that people know who you are.
Yeah, that must be cool. Like, 'cause I'm not the guy. Just this one young lady, I'm the guy. But nobody else
Well,
that she
give it
works
some
with could
time, man.
care less.
Yeah, give it some time, well, especially going to expos, like, that's well, because 'cause we're in kind of the same boat, like, our channels really didn't take off above, like, a certain level until COVID, so I don't know what things are like there, but we haven't had a reptile expo since February 2020, and at that
Mhm.
time, I was very tiny little channel, a few people would come up to me, "Hey, man, I love your work," but then now I look forward to, like, speaking like, going up to because I love being on a stage, right? Like, I'm a stand-up comedian, I used to be a bodybuilder, like, that's kind of, like, what I like to do. So to have the opportunity to go to an expo and speak to people where you have all these people who love the same thing that you love, and you have the opportunity to share your passion with them. And maybe some kid brought his mom and his mom's not sure. And then now she's listening to somebody on stage talk about it with that passion. So that is why I do this. And that is what I can't
Mhm.
wait for. I can't wait for stuff to open up. And that way I can use the platform that I've created to make people feel more comfortable with snakes. And the best place to do that is at an expo where you're talking to them live and they can come and be like, "Hey, I had a question about something you said." So I don't know how I
Yeah.
got started on this, but like I'm so passionate. I cannot wait for that to be brought back.
Yeah, I think the last expo I went to was, the October of 2019, and it was the first I think I was just crossing 10,000 subscribers as I was driving out to Chicago for that expo, and it was like, it was kind of a cool milestone, like, "Yeah, I just crossed 10K, and I'm at the, North America's largest reptile expo," and it was the first time people were, like, asked for my autograph or a acted like they were nervous when they met me at the booth and were shaking my hands because I kinda got, one of the tarantula dealers, Fear Not Tarantulas, like, paid for my ticket to get in and stuff, so and, like, gave me a little corner of their booth to put up some T-shirts and hang out, so it was kinda cool, but I haven't been out since then, I haven't been to a reptile expo at all, and that's, like this is my preferred interaction with people, like, making videos and maybe responding to some comments or something. In person, I have a very short social battery. It's like after an hour of talking with people, it's like, "All right, I gotta go and, hang out by myself for a while." This is
Man, no
too
matter
much
who you
interaction.
are, it's exhausting and not like in a bad way. It's just like to do it behind a camera and behind it's easier, it's less intimidating. And even if like you're someone like me who wants to make a living as a stand-up comic where after the show you have to talk to people and stuff like that, it is exhausting to talk and interact with people. So I don't know, the people that it looks a lot easier than it actually is, but I
Yeah.
can't wait to go to those things and be able to talk to people because I really enjoy that. I love walking off stage at hey man, I love this joke. What do you think about this? I want to be a stand-up, and to have that with reptiles. Hey man, I want to get my first thing, and like what should I look for? And to be able to like speak face to face to like a kid, or even if it's like a 45, 50-year-old man who just saw a YouTube video and sparked his interest, and now his whole life he was afraid and now he's not. Like that's what I live for. That I can't
Mhm.
wait to have that opportunity to talk to those people in person again and like shake someone's hand. And I want to know what you smell like. And I want like the whole immersive, interaction. I remember Cusco said that to me. He's like, man, I love doing the podcast with you, but I really wish I knew what you smelled like. And at first I thought it was weird. And then I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know, like, I want to be in the same room with people. And it's like a different, I don't know. I like meeting new people. I like shaking hands, and I'm really excited for that to come back.
Yeah, I have no desire to know what you smell like. I will tell you that straight up. But I'll tell you what I smell like. I smell like Palo Santo.
Oh,
that that wood.
yeah. That
Yeah,
smells like sandalwood in here. It's the beer
yeah,
oil, yeah. I
yeah. My
don't smell
wife
like
got me a bunch of
shampoo.
that.
I can tell you that. I definitely don't have a shampoo smell about me, but yeah,
Right, I would imagine.
it's man, I love it. I can't wait, and to meet other people too, and like meet because talking on the internet's one thing, right? Like this is
Mhm.
awesome. I love having interactions with you and being on other podcasts and talking just in forums and stuff. And sometimes if I want to talk about reptiles, like I joined a different Discord. I'm not gonna say which one it is. And I changed my name on Discord, and I just talk to people like you don't know who I am because you might have a preconceived thing. I like him, I don't
Mhm.
like him, whatever. And it's fun just to talk to people about reptiles, but to do it in
Yeah.
person is like a different thing. It's like a different animal, and something that I enjoy, and it'll come back sooner than later, man. Like I'm vaxxed up, baby.
Yeah.
Let me in.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's this summer is like we're going to Virginia Beach, doing like my first Tarantula Collective meetup where a bunch of people can come. We're gonna do it at the Fear Not Tarantulas brick and mortar store. And that's mainly because I'm just really excited to go to a pet shop that just sells tarantulas and inverts. Like that's just a personal thing I want to do. But since I know a lot of people are going there anyways, it's July 4th weekend. It's like, well, let's just have a little party there and just kind of hang out and get to know each other.
That's
Uh,
wicked. Yeah, because your
but
state is pretty open, right? Like you can obviously do stuff like that.
Yeah, especially here in West Virginia. I think there's still like a mask mandate if you're going out in public, but yeah, everything's open. I mean, I can like here in about an hour, I'm going to get my beard trimmed. I'm very stoked about that. But what one thing I will never, to what you were saying, sometimes I get overwhelmed talking to like other adults or just don't understand. Like, dude, I'm just some jerk in my basement making videos about like don't get excited. But little kids, like that is exciting. Like I really like talking to, like young kids and teenagers and stuff, people that are just really excited and passionate. And I know that they only know me through YouTube and they really want to get, a cool tarantula or something. And like, I don't know. There's just that I can relate to and get really excited talking to people at, just some like random 10-year-old that comes up with his dad at the Reptile Expo. And he's like, hey, he's your biggest fan. It's like, well, here, take a t-shirt, some stickers, and, just try and like feed that passion that's in them. Cause I wish I had gotten into tarantulas at that age. So I think it's very cool when I see somebody young getting into spiders, and I want to motivate them as much as I can.
I think it's like a twofold thing because it feels good. My face hurts from smiling when I talk to a kid about snakes. If I meet them at
Yeah.
somewhere, right, where they recognize like at our expo or whatever. But also, like you might be changing the world in a tiny little way because I am okay at talking to a camera and I have reptiles. So I'm good enough to make this like channel on YouTube. But what
Yeah.
if I talk to a kid and make him obsessed with snakes and that kid has the drive to go to school and maybe he finds a new species, and it all comes back to meeting some jerk off behind a camera who convinced him that snakes were cool in the first place. And the reason that I'm doing this is because Mr. and Mrs. Corvino in my kindergarten class brought in those snakes. And if it wasn't for that moment, I would never got into reptiles in the first place. So you can really change someone's entire outlook on animals from a young age from one conversation or one show or one meetup or whatever. It's amazing how much you can change that person's world just by talking to them.
Yeah. I mean, I think the chance of my legacy having anything to do with a video I made on YouTube is slim to none. But hopefully my legacy will be that my videos somehow inspired somebody that,
Mhm.
kind of took up that mantle and really helped kind of bring like normalize tarantulas and inverts as pets, or just even just became a scientist that studied them and really helped in the conservation, or, find a new species or something. Like that's a
Or
legacy
even
I would be happy to leave behind.
yeah, even something as maybe that kid that you talked to didn't grow up and become like, the next Darwin or David Attenborough or whatever. But maybe he grew up and he for a living does something that he loves. He studies spiders or snakes, or in my case, or whatever. And otherwise, he would have been working a dead end job that he didn't like. So maybe now he has this avenue and he found his passion early. Where there's a lot of adults. Like, how many kids do you know when you were graduating high school didn't know what they want to be when they grow up? So
Yeah.
maybe you inspired some kid to know what he wants to be when he grows up immediately.
Yeah. I mean, I was told to go to college even though I had no idea what major I wanted. It was like, I got a music scholarship, but it's like, I don't want to be a band teacher, and I know I'm not going to be a musician because that doesn't pay. There's not a lot of people making money playing French horn, at least here in the States. So I knew that wasn't
I get it. I get it. There's no money. Yeah, there's no unless I want to be the next Squidward, but besides that, like
yeah.
Man, the best thing I ever did was I would never tell a kid not to go to college, but if you don't know, figure it out first. Don't just go because mommy and daddy told you to. The best thing I ever did was not go to college, but that was right for me. My sister did go to university and it worked out for her. So it's just kind of like, whatever your path is, you have your own path, and don't, if you're a fish, don't be forced to climb a tree,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I am also a college dropout, and eventually it worked out for my sister. She went to college, got her degree, is working in her field, but it's like, I got a couple years in and was like, I like the college lifestyle. I like living in the dorms and partying and hanging out with girls and stuff, but I just didn't know what I wanted to be. So I'm studying philosophy and sociology and psychology and business ethics.
Philosophers now. Yeah. You can't go wrong with philosophy. Yeah. 80 grand and you can't get a job when you're done. Yeah. That's a great lifestyle. Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of what it came to. It's like all my credits were sociology and philosophy and a little bit of psychology. And they're like, well, you got to declare a major now. So it's like, before I could, move forward in the college. And it's like, well, I want to do philosophy, but yeah, there's no job for philosophers. So how about I take a few years off and figure it out? And then I just
if you had a time machine, though, you'd be in ship shape, like a lot of philosopher jobs back in the day. But none right now. I got the college lifestyle because I lived in a college town, but I didn't have to pay tuition because I didn't actually go to school. So I would drink at the bars. I would drink at Brock University with my friends who went. But then I would just walk down the hill and go home because I lived there, right? And I didn't have to take any classes or anything like that. So that is how I would recommend the college lifestyle. But to be clear, I don't think college is a waste of your time or money, just for some people. And for me, it would have been. I would have amassed all this debt, and I applied to go for culinary. Like I get skip the dishes 3 nights a week. Like, what am I going to do with a culinary thing, right? So I have no passion for that. But that's just kind of like, you have to pick something, and I'm glad I never got accepted into it because I didn't send my transcripts or whatever stupid thing it was that I didn't get accepted for.
I mean, I just paid off my student loans like this past year, and and from 2 years of college. Like, that was not a good deal. But I do use, like, everything I learned in sociology, I find that I use a lot, at least doing like YouTube and Instagram, like just kind of having that macro view of just different countries and cultures, and how just a lot of the analytical data you get from YouTube and Instagram, as far as like when to post and what to post and stuff like that, all was very reminiscent to what I was learning in sociology, and like how the psychology of large groups of people, and trying to find out how to hone in on that.
So even though you didn't get the piece of paper that says stuff, enough to actually better yourself in your career now.
Yeah.
So you kind of like, but you didn't get the silver play button, so to speak, right? Like,
exactly.
You didn't get the proof that you learned, but you actually did learn. It's very interesting. You still had to pay all the money too.
Yeah. Paid the money, learned, but I don't get any of the recognition, or I can't say I have a college degree.
Yeah, it's okay. You're going to get that silver play button soon anyway, and it's way more trendy to have that than a diploma. So you're all good.
Yeah. And my wife is on me all the time. She's like, just go get your Regents degree. Just go back for a few years and finish it, just so you can say you have a college degree. And I'm like, at no point in my life have I needed it. Like, every job I've had, I've made good money, but that wasn't a requirement. And I can just lie. I'll just say, hey, I graduated from this college. How many places even really check that out anymore?
Yeah, and what place are you going to say that to, where they're like, oh, can I see the piece of paper that came along with it, please, sir? Like, no one. It's going to be like, oh, that's cool. Like,
if I was going to be like a lawyer or a doctor, then I would need that piece of paper. But
here, being a doctor, you actually need like proof of that before you're allowed to operate on people, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Right. But if I'm just going to be like filming and editing a commercial for somebody, they're not going to care if I went to a community college or Harvard. Like, what they care about is the work that I present them at the end and what they have to pay for it.
And at the end of the day, man, like people always rely on, and I saw this all the time back in bodybuilding where it was like these personal trainers fighting for your business. Well, I got this and I got this on the wall and I got this on the wall. And then I look at you and I'm like, but I don't want to look like you. I want to look like this guy who never went to. So if you can't do it to yourself, you can't do it to me. And even though this guy doesn't have the paper on the wall to say that he's a kinesiologist and diet and all this other crap, he
Mhm.
looks like that and he knows how to do it to himself. So he knows how to do it to me. So it's a lot of your body of work, in my opinion, is more important than the flashy piece of paper that you paid 80 grand for on your wall.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing that I utilized a lot just from sociology and was I would look at my analytics and I would see that most of the people that are following me are males between like 25 and 45, kind of like my, people like me is essentially who enjoys my content. So it's like I wear a Pearl Jam shirt and then get a whole bunch of people leaving comments, or like one video I wore a Nine Inch Nails shirt. It's like old band shirts I'm pulling out of my drawers that I haven't worn in years, or am just replacing ones that my wife made me throw out because they were so stained and covered in holes. And it's like I get a lot of comments and positive response, like you wearing a Letterkenny shirt. Like I think I wore a Letterkenny shirt once. It's like
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with anything that I'm making videos about, but I know I can see what my audience is and be like, well, what else are they into? What else could we connect with or relate on another level? And
It's you
so just
can.
something as a shirt.
Well, you relate to something that isn't with your channel. And the thing is, with what we do is limited. There's only a certain amount of like, reptile keepers or whatever. And most people, like you and I, our life to a certain extent is reptiles or not amphibians, inverts in your case, because that's what we do for, a living to some
Yeah.
extent. But a lot of people, it's just kind of like another thing that they do. So if I wear a Letterkenny shirt, oh, that's my favorite show, I just binged it. Or what I do in my videos is I'll throw drops in. So like I listen to your Mom's House podcast. These are two of the funniest people, the funniest couple of all time, and I'll throw those
Yeah.
in. And people who don't watch won't get it and I'll just fly over like whatever. But then sometimes you'll put something that is deeply inappropriate in context, but because it's out of context, you can throw it in a video. It's still safe for kids because they don't know what it is, but someone who watches the podcast will have a laughing attack because they get it. They understand and they comment. And I get a lot of people who are like, bro, I hit subscribe because of that Robert Paul Champagne thing that you put in from your Mom's House, or that Two Bears.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bert is fat, Bert fucks dogs, whatever. Like I'll get comments from the show that everyone else is like, what is this guy even talking about? But they'll hit subscribe because I'm part of I'm a mommy. I'm like part of that crew of this other niche. So it
Yeah.
really helps. Same thing with the band shirts. I got made fun of for wearing a Blink 182 shirt, which apparently makes me old, by the way.
Oh yeah. Somebody made that comment, like, "You're really showing your age wearing a Nine Inch Nails shirt." I'm like, "What? That they're not
And
cool anymore?"
it makes me feel old too, because I love Nine Inch Nails in high school.
Yeah.
And they were, well, I guess they were kind of old then. They came out
Yeah.
man,
I
time
I
flies, dude.
remember in 6th grade, we had a substitute teacher, and me and my friend were reading, Hit Parader. Do you remember that magazine? It
Mhm.
wasn't so much a magazine as it was, I mean, it was a magazine, but it didn't really have a lot of articles. It was mainly just pictures of rock stars in concert. It was just
Mhm.
a lot of pictures, and we were, like, going through it, and probably would have gotten in trouble, like we were only looking at this magazine because we had a substitute teacher. We didn't think she'd do anything. And she was a younger, kind of attractive, for a teacher. And she came up to us and was like, "Is that Trent Reznor?" And we both like first froze because we were like, "Oh shit, we're in trouble. We just got busted looking at this magazine in class." But then we were like, "Wait, how the hell do you know who Trent Reznor is?" And it's like, "You think Nine Inch Nails is cool? Like, that is awesome. You're the coolest teacher I've ever met." And
Well,
then,
especially when you're like a kid in school, you think your teachers are old and their lives are over. And a lot of the times they just turn out to be like cool people who chose to do this because they like teaching people, right? Which is kind of to a certain
yeah,
extent what you and I do. We teach people about stuff and we're not old and not relevant anymore, right?
yeah. I mean, it's coming back. My wife does a lot of like her job. A lot. She does a lot of presentations in schools and stuff. And she came home the other day and was like, there were 3 kids at the high school wearing Pixie shirts and some like Save Ferris and Blink 182 and Green Day shirts. And I'm like, no way. Like that music's coming back. And she's like, I don't know if the music's coming back, but it's like kind of like wearing Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix shirts when we were in high school. It's
Well,
like it's just cool.
yeah, Miley Cyrus got in trouble for wearing a Metallica shirt and she couldn't name a Metallica song. I remember that was like a big thing. And it's like,
Oh yeah.
which is so dumb. It's like, who cares? Like, first of all, you should listen to Metallica. It's a great band. But if you don't know, they're like, who cares? It's like a trendy thing. Or like AC/DC. I used to wear Aerosmith shirts, which my mom got at concerts in the 70s, but I actually listened to Aerosmith. I wear those to high school and stuff. But yeah, it's just
Hmm.
trendy to like. And what is the band? There's like a big designer clothing company. I don't wear designer clothes, whatever it was, and they paid for the licensing. So to wear these Metallica shirts, it was like $900 for the shirt because it was like Louis Vuitton. I don't know what it was, like a designer. It's like, you know that you could get those for $5, at the kiosk in the mall, right? Like if it didn't, so silly. But yeah,
Yeah.
kids, everything comes back except for bell bottoms. Thank God, those are so ugly.
I knew that there was something weird going on when I went to Walmart and they were selling Misfits t-shirts. I was like, how in the hell did this happen? How
That
did
was
this like
trendy, man. In high school, all the girls, like all the popular girls, would wear. And I listened to the Misfits. I listened to Danzig and the whole thing, and so I would wear it also. And then like all the popular girls with like their bleached hair and stuff, and it's like you don't listen to the Misfits. There's no way you listen to Misfits. And but it was
no
like
way.
popular and trendy, right?
There was no popular girls in my high school wearing Misfits. Like,
Yeah, this was it's like 2006 or 2007. It's like, well, I think
yeah.
Guitar Hero came out. So that's
Oh,
why,
okay.
right? Because
Yeah,
Guitar
that
Hero
makes
came out and
sense.
then like Danzig and all these other bands and Metallica. And I think they had a Slash was one of the players you could play. So Guns N' Roses became big again, or at least on the t-shirts. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was video games that brought it back, I guess.
See, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a Ramon. Like that was especially like my junior and senior year. I was like, I'm Richard Ramon. With like wear the tight Levi's and the black tight t-shirt with nothing on it at all and black Chuck Taylors. And I have red hair. At the time I wasn't bald yet. I was a little shaggy. And I really wanted to dye my hair black and kind of grow it out over my eyes. Just totally rip off their style. My parents would not let me. And it turns out they were in the right because I went behind their back and dyed my hair black, and it was a horrible. You shouldn't be covered in freckles with pale skin and then dye your hair black. It does not look, especially with a red goatee. Like it was horrible. It was horrible. And I bought the semi permanent hair dye because I didn't know what I was doing. So I fell asleep in class and woke up and I had all the hair dye all over all my arms and running down my face. I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah, in high
I
school
am
was
not as cool.
the emo sweep was like the thing, right? Like so you had like the hair covering
Mhm.
one of your eyes, but not the other one. So I had the long black hair. I post pictures of it sometimes just to be like, yo, that wasn't you, because it doesn't look like. I mean, don't have any of that now,
I
but
think I
yeah,
saw
that
one
was
of
like,
those.
yeah, everyone wanted to be like My Chemical Romance or like Fall Out Boy or like whatever, right? Those were the
Yeah.
hairstyles. First, it was like the shag, and then it was like that thing, and yeah. So anyway, if you're thinking about dyeing your hair every 3 weeks through the entirety of high school, you might go bald when you're in your 20s. That's a thing
Yeah,
that might happen.
very true.
My mom used to say that all the time. She would be the one dyeing my hair for me. Because you're gonna do it anyway. I might as well like I dye my hair because I'm getting grays. You're dyeing yours because you're a dumb kid. And she would say to me all the time, she's like, "You shouldn't use these bleach kits. You're gonna go bald when you're 25." And turns out I went bald when I was 25. So you were right again, mom. You're always right.
They always are. Yeah. My mom told me not to get my ears pierced because I would have holes in my ears my entire life. And I was like, that's crazy. I'll just pull them out. They'll grow over. And I still have holes in my ears. But I also stretched them out.
Yeah, me too. I always forget that I've got holes in my ears, but people remind me. I because you look at yourself in the mirror, and also my face is a little bit rounder than it used to be. So when I look in the mirror, you can't see my earlobes anymore. But yeah, people pointed out, it's like, oh, how come you never wear? It's like they've been out for like 10 years. I forget that they're even there. But again, another thing that
Yeah.
my mom said, you're gonna have holes in your ears your whole life, and or my sister got a lip pierce. You're gonna have a hole in your lip your whole life, and sure enough, there you are. 15 years later, you still have that hole in your lip.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Well, buddy, we're well past 2 hours.
Oh wow.
we're, we're reminiscing and I got to get going, but it's been awesome talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Do you have anything you want to plug that's coming out soon that you want to kind of let people be aware of?
So I would love to plug some stand-up dates if that wasn't illegal, but I will not be coming to a town near you. But if you'd like to find more of Wickens Wicked Reptiles, Wickens Wicked Reptiles on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, the whole thing, and of course YouTube. And please do hit subscribe. It really helps the channel. I'd appreciate it.
It really does. It's weird because I know one part of me knows that subscribers it really doesn't mean much as far as like what you get paid, but it definitely helps remind people that you got new content coming out. So it's definitely worth it to leave a comment and subscribe and all that stuff. Do you have any of your stand up on YouTube? Like, if we've talked about it a lot, is there anywhere people can go and watch some of your stand up?
Yeah, so if you Google my name, Adam Wickens, I have another channel. It's like 100 subscribers. I only use it to like send into festivals and stuff. And
Yeah.
then I do like drone photography for fun. So I've got a couple like short films I made with my drone on there, but you can find it. Disclaimer, it is not family friendly. I'm the family friendly guy on YouTube, but that content is it's pretty wild. So just be aware before you go and click on it.
Now I really want to go watch it. I'm going to do
Yeah,
that.
you can find it. I've had a couple people on Discord. It's like that joke about the deer eating your asshole. That's a fun. I like that one. And then everyone else is like, please don't say that on Discord. But yeah, it's yeah, you can go and watch it on my other YouTube channel. They're Adam Wickens.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be difficult being family friendly on YouTube. Just because I know my mouth is very foul and my humor is very dark. And sometimes I'm like editing a video and it's like, yeah, I wouldn't want my niece here and like watching that on YouTube. So we'll cut that part out.
Yeah, the YouTube channel Wickens Wicked Reptiles, I keep it family friendly, but if I'm doing a podcast and hear the host, let a shit go, then yeah, okay. Bombs away, be yourself. But yeah, otherwise, family friendly is the best way to go. And the algorithm likes it, and subscribers like it, and brands like it, and everything else. So just easy way to do it.
Yeah, with a podcast, I definitely let the swearing fly, but I usually try to wait about 20 minutes in because I'm like, I know at least 90% of the people stop watching by then. So then we can cuss all we want. It's no problem. But one I do get away with, and a few people have called me out on it, but it was a joke when I was in high school and I seen it on Family Guy and American Dad and stuff like that. But it was she's being a real see you next Tuesday. And I just always thought that was funny. And then when I was uploading every Tuesday, I was like trying to figure out, it took me a few months to figure out what line I would use. And then one time I just said, all right, I will see you next Tuesday. And then I thought it was funny, like myself. I was like, I
thought it was funny. I saw that and I knew exactly what was going on. And I thought I'm like, that's pretty funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, maybe a lot more people see it but I know my kid, he has no idea. He just thinks I'm just saying, I'll see you next Tuesday when my next video will be out. And, it's kind of like a dirty joke in SpongeBob. Like not everybody gets it, but if you get it,
Yeah.
it's,
if you know, you know.
Yeah. So I made a shirt that said, see you next Tuesday. That sold pretty well.
If you don't know, now you know.
I was like, yeah, you wearing that shirt around. Somebody's going to tell you if you don't get the joke. But yeah. All right, man. Well, I got to go to the barber. I'm sure you've got stuff to do. What's your next video going to be on?
So my next video is out on Thursday. It is my unpopular opinion about your favorite YouTubers, and I might stir up some shit, chap some asses, but it's going to be a fun old time. And at the very end of the video, stick around to the end because I tear a strip off of somebody. It'll be fun. It's going to go up on Patreon in about 10 minutes here.
Okay. And this podcast comes out Thursday morning. So if you're listening to this podcast, you definitely have to go over to Adam or Wickens Wicked Reptiles YouTube channel and watch that video because it sounds like it's going to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you say?
4:15 Eastern time.
Well, there you go. You know exactly when he's going to upload it. I struggle with that. Usually I upload it at 10 or 11, but I've started uploading at 3 or 4, just trying different time slots, trying to figure out what gets the best response. So are you always at 4:15 or is it just that's what it happens to be?
Yeah, I was like 6 months in and then I'm like, I have to pick a time. I worked till 5. So the video came out. I got home at like 5:15. So it had an hour to marinate. And then that way I could make corrections, reply to comments. So 4:15, It works for me. It's always stuck Mondays and Thursdays at 4:15 every week.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you and I'm sure everybody enjoyed it. And hopefully everyone will go over and like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff and help promote his channel.
Thanks for having me on, Richard. I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Okay. I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye, everybody.